What's going on, everybody? I hope everybody's doing well tonight. Very, very special show tonight. I hope you guys are doing well. I have to start talking as soon as this goes on. Welcome to the pre-show. We will be actually going live here in about 12 minutes, but I wanted to start the show a little bit early to kind of sign in and see how everybody's doing. And I hope you guys are all doing fantastically well. Going to be making sure that we have all kind of our connectivity and whatnot. Cammie, hello. Cammie is the first on board. I am so glad that everybody's going to be joining us tonight. We got very, very special guests this evening, as you already know. Donna, hello. Susie, hello. Julie, hello. And be sure that when you guys are participating tonight that you ask all kinds of questions. We're going to be having all kinds of fun tonight. And just going to just loosen up, have a great time, and just chill. And I'm very much looking forward to tonight's show. It's going to be amazing. Aaron, what's going on? Many Moons, hello. Princess Mill is in the house. Leanne's in the house. Andre's in the house as well. Susie Q. Jaden's in the house as well. Hey, how you doing, Jaden? Well, Jaden's calling all the way from the other side of their house. Laura, what's going on? Kat is in the house as well. Hey, Kitty. And yes, it's going to be a lot of fun tonight. As you all know, tonight we're going to have the legendary saxophonist Eric Leeds is in the house, and we're going to have a lot of fun tonight talking with him. We tried to dig a little bit deeper with some of the questions, but it's just kind of one of those things where you just kind of just navigate through and just, it is what it is. Teresa calling from Minnesota. What's going on, Brian? Hello. Trish, everybody's in the house. This is fantastic. As you guys know, if we get cut off on Facebook for playing any type of music, just let's switch over to YouTube. YouTube is a little bit slower at picking stuff up, but that's okay. We are actually going to be recording here tonight, so we're all good. It's going to be awesome, and so I hope you guys are going to be tuning in. It's going to be a lot of fun tonight. We are going to be having a good time tonight. As I mentioned, tonight we have Eric Leeds in the house, and which is going to be amazing. It's going to be a lot of fun. And then on top of that, we also have. I wanted to check to see what was going on today in Prince history. And today in Prince history, quite a bit going on. There was a release of George Clinton's album "Hey Man, Smell My Finger" that had the song from Prince on it called "The Big Pump." Also, the complete Stevie Wonder was released on iTunes, which was a collective set that contained a version of a song called Cold Chill with Prince, and also which was remixed by Prince, also a song with Prince playing guitar called So What the Fuss. And of course, 3121.com, the website, streamed the song Here I Come by Bria Valente and put it on the Jam of the Month thing. And also, the Times album Pandemonium was awarded gold by the RIAA, which means that it sold 500,000 copies. So it's always good to kind of see some of that activity there. And it's going to be a good, amazing time. Yeah. I'm seeing, we're going to be talking about all kinds of different things. I'm getting all types of questions. If you guys have specific questions that you want to ask Eric, please let me know. I just got done seeing Jeremy, I just got done seeing your question, so I'm going to put that in there for sure. That will be a good one. But I want to make sure that if you guys have specific questions that you would like to ask Eric, that you get them in ASAP. And I will also credit you with asking the question as well. So it's let me make sure I put your name on here, Jeremy. But yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun tonight. We're going to have a good time. Basically, everybody should be joining us here momentarily, I'm sure. Rob is going to be joining us, and also, sorry, I'm trying to type, and it's just I can't walk and chew gum at the same time, so you're going to have to forgive me because there's only so many things that I can obviously do. But yeah, we're going to be having a good time. Let me go ahead and put on the headphones because we got to make sure that everybody's in the house here. First, my illustrious co-host is in the mix. Jeff Page is in the house. I forgot. I have to do that too. I don't know why I don't have that particular one ready.
Man,
I know it's a shame. Hold on. Yes, it is. It is what it is. It is what it is. And And I know we're in the middle of the pre-show and everything, but I think we absolutely have to go ahead and bring him in while he's here. Ladies and gentlemen, the guest of honor tonight is already joining us here. Eric Leeds is in the house.
Hey there.
Eric Leeds.
Yep.
Christopher, I can barely hear you.
Okay, hold on. Yeah, well, that's because I got this over here. Hold on a second.
Okay.
Let me switch to this mic, and then I'm going to switch over to here, and this will all be. We'll fix this real quick here.
All right.
Chris is the only guy we know who can shout and whisper at the same time.
That should be a little bit better. Is that a little bit better? You're probably also
a little bit better, but it's still pretty soft. I've got my volume pretty much cranked.
Let me go ahead and stop the.
The music's louder than you.
Yeah, I know. I'm just going to go ahead and stop the music because this is actually the pre-show. But you know what? I mean, you just gotta kind of just go right into it.
So awesome.
Yeah, I know. We're just going to start the show a little bit early. Why not? I mean, there's no reason why we wouldn't start the show early. Ladies and gentlemen, we're starting 7 minutes early. So all you early birds that are in here, I know we don't normally start the show till 8 o'clock. We'll just do a little pre-show action with the guest of honor here tonight, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Eric Leeds in the house.
Mr. Eric Leeds.
Jeff, I can hear you. Christopher, I still can't barely hear you.
You
at
still
all.
can barely hear me. Let me see if I can. Hold on a second. Let me see if I can get this situated. Give me just a second. All right, Jeff, go ahead and talk for a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm amazed. I'm glad you're actually here. You got that musician mentality. You're here for the sound check, right?
Gotta be. So I'm not the most tech savvy, so I got to be sure that everything's on my end.
Yeah, that's definitely better. I can see the level is definitely better on me now.
Oh man, I get it. I'm glad you're here early. I love it. Pre-show.
Eric, can you hear me okay now?
Yeah, it still could be more if it's possible.
Yeah, absolutely. I can give you more. Hold on a second. Let me.
Maybe I'm just shouting. Am I too loud?
No.
We want to make absolute sure that I can be heard. I can actually talk pretty well into the microphone. I think I'm doing okay. The level seems to be pretty good over here with me.
Okay, interesting. Neither one of you are as loud as I'm normally getting.
Well, I'm gonna actually boost you guys up too.
Wow, a lot of boosting going.
Also check. Let me try something.
All right, well, this is going to be fun. So, ladies, I'm seeing really, really good levels from us over here. So I want to make sure that we'll work it all out, and it's going to be good. Let me test the sounds here.
I'll tell you what. Let me check something on my end too.
Sure, absolutely. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are actually, for those of you tuned in on the Funked Up app, and audio-wise, we are actually going. Everybody that's in here is saying that. Saying they can hear all of us perfectly well. So that's good to know. But we want to make sure that Eric can hear us because we have some amazing questions that we want to be able to ask him. And we're going to make sure that it's all there. Hold on a second.
There we go. Okay.
All right. So you're hearing us pretty good now?
Yeah, much better.
Oh, perfect.
Much better.
Awesome. Good.
All right. Yeah. So for those of you who are listening on the Funked Up app and on the audio sources around the world, including Radionomy and like the vast amount of we also are on video. You can check us out on video, facebook.com/Funkatopia, or also youtube.com/Funkatopia, or mixcloud.com/Funkatopia. If you on the road, please don't watch anything, just the road. And then on top of that,
no, tell them to pull over.
Yeah, right.
Don't pull over.
Yeah,
pull over. Hang out a minute.
Yeah, exactly. Here,
So then, and then we have the illustrious, legendary Eric Leeds in the house with an amazing vinyl collection behind him. I mean, you have to have some serious treasures in there, I'm sure.
Yes, I do. That's about maybe a quarter of it.
Man, oh my gosh, that's fantastic to know.
Huh?
Because actually, as many of you know, for those who don't watch the show on a regular basis, whenever I go out of town, I try to hit some type of record store in some form or fashion. And hold on a second, our other co-host is also here. Rob Rhythm is in the house. Rob, what you doing?
Hey. What's up, Rob?
What's up, everybody? Yeah, that's right. Hey, what's up, Eric? It's great to see you.
Good to see you. So where are all you located?
Well,
Christopher, you're in Georgia, right?
Yep, I'm in the ATL, and Jeff is also in the ATL.
Okay.
And Rob below us is in Arizona.
Arizona.
I'm in Phoenix, Arizona, home of the Arizona Cardinals.
Okay. Well, I'll
Proud moment.
You have my sympathies. all that's going on in Arizona. So
well, that's a good point.
Well, see, Eric is a baseball fan, so
Nice.
I know he's got to be following the Braves right now.
I've got it on my phone right now. But I must be honest with you. I'm a Dodger fan.
Oh, okay. Well, you know.
Yeah. All right.
So I got to hope that my boys can pull one out tonight. So
Yeah. Well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and of course, you know, again, with the Braves playing tonight, it's got to be. I mean, certainly, you lived in Atlanta for a while. Certainly, you have to have some type of Atlanta.
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, I was a diehard Dodger. I mean, this was in the early '80s.
With an amazing.
You know, I was a diehard Dodger fan. Actually, I mean, this is very difficult to explain. The Yankees are really my number one team.
Okay.
Okay.
But I still hold on to the Dodgers because that's kind of what I grew up with. So, you know, but the Yankees are done this year. So I'm all in with the Dodgers.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
All right.
And Jeff, if you can turn down your volume just a little bit, I want to make sure that I boost the volume so that Eric gets a really, really good volume here, and just pull yours down a little bit because you're really hot.
Absolutely. How's that?
You're really hot in multiple ways, my friend.
I'm hot.
Oh, so much.
But anyways, what I was going to do, and normally we make the screens bigger so that Eric Leeds is the focus.
There we go.
Oh my God, I have to.
Yes, you're like, but I tell
Come
you,
on, that's what they want to see.
But I will tell you, since we're kind of just starting this show, we didn't even do our intro music or anything in this. It's a shame, but let me go ahead. I'll do this then. Basically, school's in, and the teacher's got a saxophone. But and let me just go ahead and play you in like you should be played in.
What do you got played? Wow.
Yeah, it was kind of loud.
That's okay.
But anyway,
I was gonna actually sing "Take Me Out to the Ball Game," but I'll
You know, Eric, I'm glad you're here, but you've already put us in a situation. I'm from Boston, so I don't know.
Well, now here's the deal, because the Yankees are my number one. My number one division is still the American League East.
There you go. We're good now.
Now this is the way it goes. If the Dodgers go, then I follow the Dodgers until they're out. But once the Dodgers are out, I probably will go with Boston because they represent the American League East. And plus, because I'm a Yankee fan, I know more about Boston than any other team. Because if you're a Yankee fan, you have to know Boston.
That's right.
And vice versa, you know.
That's right.
So that's the way it goes. If it ends up, I mean, I'd love it. I'd love the World Series to be Boston and LA. In which I'd be rooting for LA. But once LA is gone, then I'll go with Boston.
Cool. All right, we're good.
The man used to live here in Atlanta. He's got no love for Atlanta at all. I love this. This is great. You know, but
it was a different purpose.
I think I was just having a discussion, and let me just go ahead and say, for those watching on video, there's a reason why I have the big screen and not Eric for the moment, because I'm going to play a little bit of a game with Eric. But I was just talking with I can't figure out which way. Well, I was just talking with Jeff the other day because I got so tired of the Falcons losing game after game after game. And I was just like, I guess I just need to find another team. I mean, it'd be one thing if I'm not a fair weather fan. Okay, this has been going on for 30 plus years, and I am just I just can't take it anymore. Just so much. It's just so much. But basically, what I was saying was, I just got back in from town, went up to Columbus, Ohio, and actually visited 2 vinyl record stores. And Jeff will tell you that I love to go to record stores and see if I could find some lost classics and whatnot. And of course, I found some really, really good deals. So I'm going to play a little bit of a game with Eric where I'm going to show some of the albums that I got.
All right.
And you do a rating between, I guess, 0 to 10. Like 0, not a chance. I give a crap to listen to that. To 10, like that's an awesome album. Or if you're not that familiar with the band, you can just say not familiar, and I'll let you guys other play. Oh, but before I do start that, I did happen to find this little teeny store, this global store, Global Gifts, that actually sold Prince Christmas ornaments that were
You know what? As fun as that must be, that is not what I'd want to find on my tree.
Yeah,
Are you sure that's not a Halloween ornament?
It's kind of creepy looking.
It's this one. I'm glad I'm a Jew. I don't, all right.
It could also hang very, very daintily on
Right.
the
Yeah, you can make a dreidel out of them. No, I don't think
Very disturbingly.
Yeah.
He's got the spins.
And of course, I happened to get a book from Robbie Krieger, who you guys know, the guitarist from The Doors, called "Set the Night on Fire," and it's autographed. It's an autographed copy. I figured, they're dropping off one by one from The Doors. He's one of the few. Autographed from Robbie, so I was happy to get that too. But anyways, let's talk about vinyl, and so I can make my screen small, and we could talk to Eric. But I really got to know about some of these. Obviously, you've probably seen this one, The Police, Synchronicity. Where are we 0 to 10 on this one, Eric?
Never heard it.
Oh, come on!
Wow.
Come on, really?
Couldn't tell you one thing about it. Couldn't tell you one thing about it. I mean, what are some of the songs on it?
Every Breath You Take.
Okay, I've heard that.
Okay, yeah, that's on here. What else was off of this one? There was tons off of here, wasn't there?
Wrapped around your finger.
Wrapped around your finger. Tea in the Sahara.
Music that wasn't even on my radar screen.
Oh, there you go.
Wow.
All right.
Yeah.
So we're gonna get a 0 on that one.
Well, it might be. If I actually sat down and listened to it, I might like it.
It makes me more intrigued to hear your collection now. If you've never heard of
So
that.
what about Bring On the Night?
Bring On the Night.
Sting.
Yeah. I went to see. I went to see Sting when he had the band with Branford.
Okay.
I went to hear Branford.
That's a good one.
That's what I thought.
I can tell you nothing more about that gig other than what Branford, Kenny Kirkland played.
Yes.
I like it.
That's what I thought. Okay, all right.
I like that.
Stacey has a good point. Stacey said Mr. Leeds was working hard when that was out.
He was.
Correct.
Well,
1982. Well, 1982.
80. Well, actually, I was working much harder. That's when I was a bar band musician and actually worked for a living.
Oh wow.
Talking about something like that.
Yeah.
Earth, Wind, and Fire, Spirit.
Not one of my favorites of theirs, but I mean, it's Earth, Wind, and Fire.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, can't deny that.
I don't know if you're familiar with this one.
Might have heard of it.
Not with a 10-foot pole.
So the family gets a 0 from Eric Leeds.
No, that's it's a Prince album. As Prince albums go, it's pretty good.
Legendary. Oh, here's one that you're probably familiar with: Tower of Power, Urban Renewal.
Nope, I have one Tower of Power album.
Really?
Yeah.
Prince was a huge Tower of Power fan, so I
I'm
thought
not.
that
I'm
really.
I have to be very careful about this. One of my closest, dearest friends is their bass player, Mark van Bockenhagen, who I played with Sheila E. in one of the best bands I ever played with in the mid-90s. And Tower of Power is a great, great band. I just have never cared much for their music.
Okay.
Yeah. Some of their stuff is cool. I've gone to hear them live and enjoyed it, because they're a great band. But the music never really resonated with me that much.
Yeah, we're going to be talking about this because Prince's music had a hard time resonating with you as well. So we're definitely going to get into this.
Yeah.
Average White Band.
Now that's a hell of an album. Now probably the best of their albums was Soul Searching, but there's some great shit on that. AWB was, people might not know, that band stomped. And those are the days when I was like young and actually going out to hear bands. And AWB, Steve Ferrone, give me a break.
Yeah,
You know.
I still love the story about Average White Band. How they told the story of how they came up with the name of the band. One of the I think it was Steve. Maybe I don't remember who it was that said this. That was like, even an average white band can play really good funk music. And James Brown, if I remember the story correctly, James Brown took offense to that, and that's the reason why he
Probably sounds like something he would.
Yeah, and he put together JB and the Above Average Black Band for a period of time. And it was, I think they actually had a couple of releases or one or two releases with James Brown's band was named that.
AWB was a hell of a band.
Yeah.
Rhythm section was tremendous. Yeah.
Sly and the Family Stone, Stand.
Yeah, that's I don't have that album. I have there's a riot going on. I've got compilations of Sly. Once again, not one of my absolute favorites, but there's collections of their songs that I love. But I wouldn't say that they were one of my go-to favorite bands of the era.
I only got a couple more. Actually, I have a few more, but I'm not going to even put up Climax, which is a great album, because you probably don't listen to them, or Jody Watley.
Jody Watley when she was with Shalimar.
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah.
Stevie Wonder's The Secret Life of Plants, which I just found out is an amazing album to work to, because it's an incredible album to work to.
I cannot explain why I was never a huge Stevie Wonder fan, which would go against almost everything that I'm about in music.
Yeah.
There's stuff that I hear occasionally from Stevie that I'd never heard before or paid any attention. I said, wow, that's a great song.
Yeah.
From a standpoint of just factual reality, there are a few artists in the history of pop music in America that are more significant than Stevie Wonder. And there's songs of his that I dig, but my favorite Stevie Wonder songs, generally speaking, were little Stevie Wonder songs.
Right.
So I to this day, I don't know why I'm not a huge Stevie Wonder fan, but I'm if it's a song I like it, then I dig it. But I never was somebody that was just going to go all out and get into whatever Stevie was doing.
Eric, maybe if you were a musician, maybe you'd understand where he's coming from.
Maybe I'll leave that one. Okay. Yeah. Maybe it's because I'm a musician. I don't know. Yeah.
Well, and Stevie it was really hit and miss for me too. I loved the stuff from the 60s, obviously. It was really, really upbeat, and I loved the trippier stuff in the 70s. But then when he got into the 80s, it was the part-time lover stuff, and it was still good, and there was still good, structurally solid song writing.
The guy's an incredible songwriter.
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean, just among anything else. But
Yeah.
I think maybe because some of his stuff was just a little too pop for my taste.
Yeah.
That's because
because in the 80s for sure. Yeah.
I think
basically through this, from 60s to 70s into the early 80s when I still listened to pop music. If it wasn't George Clinton or Bootsy, don't waste my time. I mean, I was so deep into that. Isley Brothers. That was anything about Isley Brothers. And then after that, Kid Creole and the Coconuts is to me one of the greatest freaking bands of all time. And it's a shame that they could not get arrested in the United States. They were huge in Europe for a period of time. Yeah. But in the early 80s, that's what I listened to. I was into Kid Creole and just about nothing else for a while.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, I think Annie, I'm Not Your Daddy was the first song I heard from them, and I got into them then. And I was like, all right, I can dig it.
I mean, I'm sorry. First of all, they were a quintessential New York band. Mm-hmm. And I have a bias against music from New York. So the Latin component of their music and all of that was something that was just so natural to musicians growing up at that era in New York. And August Darnell, who was Kid Creole, was a very, very, very well-read, smart, worldly kind of guy. And his lyrics were absolutely just tremendous, the stories that he told. But the band in the early 80s was just absolutely ridiculous. I can't say how much I love that band. Yeah.
Okay.
Wow. And we're trying to keep well. Of course, the last album I just made myself small. You obviously know this album, the Ice Cream Castle's The Time. Ice Cream Castle. Actually, the song is Ice Cream Castles, plural, but the album is Ice Cream Castle, singular. Don't know why that was, but
yeah. Once again, for me,
no horns.
I never had the opportunity to hear The Time live. And I always, I always regret that I never had the opportunity, because I know all these guys and I know what the band could do. Once again, I think for my taste, the band was much better than their material. Once again, I thought the band was great. I just didn't really care for the material that much. What 93? What the crazy hi-hat thing? With the phone number.
Oh, 977-993-11.
Yeah, that I dug that.
Which was a drum pattern that was input into the drum machine by the Tower of Power drummer.
Really?
Yes, it was actually came with the drum machine, and it was a drum pattern that was pre-programmed into the drum machine.
I'll be damned.
And
I didn't know that.
Why am I?
That's interesting, because supposedly, Prince's first Lynn drum machine was serial number 002. That's what I've heard. So
believe it.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, ladies and gentlemen, if you're just joining us, we started the show a little bit early because we were doing a little bit of a pre-show check, but I had to drop the music out because Eric wanted to be able to make sure that he could hear everybody. And so it is my honor to have on Funkatopia Live with us today, Eric Leeds in the house. Yay! There's all of the sound effects. It's just really a travesty that I don't have these things going on. It's fine. It is what it is. I love having these little sound effects and whatnot, but
we need to get your sound effects game up.
Oh my gosh. Well, the iPad went to sleep, so it was just like, okay, if I have to sit there and type out my password, then it's not even worth it. You got to be ready on the moment. But we have so many questions to ask you, and again, it is an honor to have you on.
Okay, first of all, how much money do I win if I answer the questions correctly?
Well, I don't know, Jeff. What was the going rate right now?
I think we were paying in Hennessy.
Oh, we're paying in Hennessy. That's right.
Yeah.
Oh, what you were drinking?
That ain't gonna work. But okay. If will something come down if there's a secret word? Now I'm really,
it's gonna rain on you.
Pee Wee Herman will drop down.
Okay.
Right.
I was just wondering, because if anybody listening understands the reference I just made, then good for you. Because that one goes back.
It's got to be hanging and it's got to be like falling. It's got to be like falling side to side, and the secret.
It was like, say the secret word. Say the secret word, and the duck comes down. You win $100. That was from Groucho Marx back in 1950, somewhere around there. All right. So now now you know where I live.
Yeah, that was
Still.
Before your time, though. So close. I get it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the show was in syndication for 50 years after that. So
exactly. I was so excited because when I was a kid, I was born in '68. When I was a kid, I used to break my neck getting off the bus in order to get home in time to see the Monkees, and I was just like, I'm gonna miss it. I had no idea at the time that show was way syndicated at that point.
Oh yeah, yeah. I think that show lasted 2 seasons, maybe. I think
every single show was amazing to me as a kid. I don't know why. It was very inappropriate for a kid to watch, but I loved it.
All
anyway.
right. Well,
still watched it. We all did.
Yes.
I did.
We got an opportunity to get Eric to rate the classics. We kind of really didn't do the score, but at least got a little bit of feedback on some of the vinyls. Those are some of my vinyl takeaways from 2 record stores in Columbus. One called Thunder Pussy, which was a weird name for a record store. It was in I was having a difficult time getting my daughter to go into. She's like, I'm not going into that store, as that's the name of the store.
Where did you eat afterwards? Hooters?
Twin Peaks.
Yeah.
But anyways, so it was fun. And so anyway, let's talk about Eric. That's why he's here, right? Born in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. You moved to Pittsburgh.
Actually moved to Richmond, Virginia
Richmond.
first.
Yeah.
Okay, that's right. It then eventually ended up in Atlanta around 1982, even though you don't have any love for the Braves, which is fine. It's perfectly okay. Did you do
I used to go see them a lot. Excuse me. I used to enjoy going to see them. But by then, got to tell you, by 83, 84, team wasn't too good.
Yeah, it wasn't until the early 90s that I actually figured out how to pull something out. But then
they did. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then that was it.
Yeah.
And then that was it.
Yep.
They're still a good team, just not World Series.
Yeah. So you were in Atlanta in 1982. That was around the same time that I moved here to Atlanta, and I'm still here. You were obviously in your 20s then, but I was around 14. But we have a very eclectic music scene here in Atlanta, as you know. And as a musician, what was the primary thing that you noticed about the music scene as compared to up north in Virginia and Pittsburgh? I mean,
to be absolutely honest with you, I moved to Atlanta coincidentally. I actually moved there in 83. One of my closest friends who ended up playing trumpet with me with Prince, Matt Bliston, who's known to the Prince fans as Atlanta Bliss. He was from Pittsburgh. We went to school together, and we played in bands off and on for over 10 years before we ever got involved with Prince. He had moved to Atlanta. He was interested. We were both kind of burnt out on the bar band scene, because that's what basically we were bar band musicians, playing from 250 to 275 gigs a year, just night after night after night. Mm-hmm. And in those days, you might bring home $150, $200 for playing night after night. Mm. Matt moved to Atlanta in order to try to see if he could get involved in commercial music, making jingles and things like that. But at the time, Atlanta was becoming a big media center, CNN and all the things like that. And he wanted to get out of Pittsburgh. So he went down to Atlanta. A few months later, I went down to visit him and just decided to say, to hell with it. I'm done with Pittsburgh. I'm out of there. I think I'll come down here. that was pretty much my plan. So I was there just kind of bumming around and not really doing much. A year later, I was starting to work with Prince. I was still living in Atlanta for a couple more years the first few years I was working with Prince and really commuting. So by then I wasn't really spending that much time in Atlanta. I don't really recall that there was that much of a scene bar band wise. There were a couple of good clubs. There was Moon Shadows in Virginia Highlands, which was
still there, by the way.
Is that still okay? Still there. I used to go to some clubs and listen to bands in Buckhead and places like that. I did a handful of just club gigs, lounge gigs. Couldn't even tell you. I little memory of what they were even about. So really, it was a point in time where I was kind of wondering what was next for me as a musician, and I was coming to a determination that I didn't know that music was something I was really going to be able to continue in a way that was going to be meaningful for me. When you're in your 20s and you're bumming around and playing with good bands, I played with some absolute fabulous bands, but when you're just making a couple $100 a week, that's okay when you're in your 20s. But by the time you're in your early 30s and you're still living hand to mouth playing gigs like that, you say, okay, is this all I'm going to do with my life? And jazz was always the primary, aspiration musically for me. But at that point, I didn't really think that I possessed what was necessary as just a straight up jazz player. For example, just say, go to New York and just jump into the pit there and see if I could sink or swim. That wasn't something that at the time I think that I would have been successful doing. So, like I say, I really didn't have much of a plan. I was just kind of living hand to mouth, and then all of a sudden my brother called. My brother Alan, who was Prince's office manager and road manager at the time, he calls and says Prince is putting this band called The Family, and he's interested in having a saxophone in it. Apparently Alan played him some recordings that I had done, and Prince was fortunately enthused enough to say, tell your brother, arrange for your brother to come up here and let's do some recording sessions, see what happens. So, you know, my involvement with Prince was real simple. I needed a gig. And it was, you know, that was it.
Right.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. But you know, I do want to take a little step back. Like, tell me what type of music that, you know, you and Matt Bliston, aka Atlanta Bliss, played together. You guys had a hard funk jazz. Rob had kind of filled me on some history of this, you know, pre-Prince.
The first band that we played together was in I think 1975. It was a lounge band, like a real Holiday Inn kind of lounge band, with a singer piano player. His name was Alki Stereopoulos, of all, you know, and wonderful singer, wonderful musician. We had a good little band, and we played, you know, this is 1975. We were playing still a lot of standards from the Tin Pan Alley, you know, Great American Songbook, but we were also playing some contemporary standards. In 1975, you were in a lounge band. You were playing songs from Jesus Christ Superstar and stuff like that, you know. But it was a quintet, and we played hotel lounges and restaurants and dining rooms. But you're playing 4, 5, sometimes 6 sets a night, 6 nights a week, week after week after week. And it was good music, and it was an important gig for both me and Matt, because we got a lot of shit together on that gig, because the nature of the music gave us enough time to stretch out. And like I say, playing old Cole Porter songs, Jerome Kern, you know, that's the shit that I enjoyed, you know, grew up listening to by jazz cats. Right. So that was an important year for, you know, I think for both of us. After that, in the next several years, we went just hardcore into R&B and funk, because that's where we could make a living around the Pittsburgh scene. So we eventually had a band called Taking Names, and it was basically a band put together by me and a drummer whose name was H.B. Bennett, who was my closest, dearest friend, who tragically passed away several years ago. But we had put this band together. Matt played with us in this band. He was kind of like the, you know, it was an 8-piece band. So that didn't make it easy playing bar bands with an 8-piece band. So it wasn't a whole lot of money, but
no,
you know, this was 1977, 78. It was a tremendous time to be an R&B funk oriented cover band. Because like you say, you had Stevie Wonder at his best, you had Earth, Wind and Fire at their best, you had George Clinton and Bootsy at their best, you had Isley Brothers at their best, AWB, Kool and the Gang. So I mean, it was a field day for you know what we could do. I used to like to take the songs and try to make arrangements out of them that could maybe, you know, be a little bit different. Sometimes it was a matter of taking like an Earth, Wind and Fire song that might have like, you know, 40 musicians on it, and trying to break it down to something that would work with a band with like 1 singer and 2 horn players. We did write our own material. The pop oriented stuff that we wrote really wasn't very good, because that's not really, as writers, where my heart was or where Matt Bliston's heart was. We wrote a lot of instrumental music. And fortunately, in those days, the gigs would start about 10:30 at night, 10:30 until 2. That was the bar band hours in Pittsburgh. The first sets, we could normally get away with playing instrumental stuff. And some of us were, you know, a lot of the stuff we played was more in the character of like Weather Report, because those were our heroes. I mean, that was my biggest hero in musicians and bands at that time. So we were writing and playing music like that. And we could get away with it on the first set, because the dancers wouldn't come to the club until about 11:30. So by the time they come, when we were doing the second set, now it's okay. Now we just got to keep them dancing. But back in those days, as long as we could keep them on the dance floor, we could take the music and the songs anywhere we wanted. So we might take a song like Kool and the Gang's like Open Sesame or something like that, and we play that sucker for 15 minutes, you know, because we do the song and then we go off into vamps and grooves and everyone would solo. As long as the dancers were out there, everything was fine. So, you know, Then after that, that band broke up from 1979 to 82. I was with an absolute tremendous band led by a singer named Billy Price. Billy Price is a blues and R&B singer, was based in Pittsburgh. He spends his time now between Pittsburgh and Baltimore. He's very, very well known in the hardcore blues R&B community. I mean, he's a regular performer at many of the blues festivals. He's even been an artist in residence. And he had a band for many years called the Keystone Rhythm Band. And I was a member of that band for 4 years. The band predated me by about a year and a half. After I left the band, that band was together for, I think another 5, 6, 7 years after I left the band. In the 4 years that I was in the band, and this is no bullshit. This is because I have all of my journals and all of the itineraries to prove it. I played 981 gigs with that one band in 4 years. Now that's, now, and that was typical. I mean, that was to be a bar band musician back then.
Yeah.
That's what you did. And we spent about, I'd say about 2 weeks of every month playing in the bars around Pittsburgh. The rest of the time we would be on the road playing a circuit of clubs anywhere from Boston down to Atlanta. We played a lot around DC and Baltimore, Philadelphia, and we were doing double bills. I mean, there were some absolutely fabulous bands. Duke Robillard, his band. Bob Margolin was a tremendous guitar player, was guitar player for Muddy Waters. Fabulous Thunderbirds, Roomful of Blues, the Nighthawks. But we used to do double bills with Albert Collins quite often, and with Stevie Ray Vaughan, because this was when Stevie Ray was still playing clubs. He hadn't blown up into being a superstar yet. So, people ask me about what it was like to play with Prince and say, well, is he the greatest guitar you were ever on stage with? And I would say, well, maybe he was one of them. But Stevie Ray Vaughan would always sit in with us when we would do these double bills. Wow. And I got to tell you, Stevie Ray Vaughan was one of those cats that come up, just plug his guitar into an amp, hit one note, and the stage would levitate. I mean, Stevie Ray Vaughan was absolutely just one of the most incredible guitar players you could ever imagine, and I was really happy for him, and not surprised a couple of years later when all of a sudden he broke out and became a superstar. I said, oh yeah, if anyone on that circuit was going to do that. But anyway, this band with Billy Price was a tremendous band. In fact, I want to give a shout out. Might be listening. There's a tenor saxophone player by the name of Jim Eminger. We called him the Iceman, and he still lives in Pittsburgh. And he was my section mate in that band. And I probably played, like I said, I played 981 gigs standing next to that cat, And I got to tell you, there's a lot about the saxophone that I didn't know before I met him, and that I know now. He's a tremendous jazz and R&B and blues player, and it was a treat to be able to be in a band with somebody of that caliber. And we're still tight now. He is an Atlanta Braves fanatic. So if he's watching now, he's got one eye on this and the other guy on the game going on right now.
That's right.
But anyway, he still one of my dearest friends, and one of the wonderful things about playing that band was being able to play in the section with him. So that was basically it. After that, I was burned out on bar bands, and I said, I never want to see the inside of a nightclub again. So
I was lucky enough to actually see Stevie Ray Vaughan one time, and it was by accident because I was actually there to see Huey Lewis and the News on their sports tour.
Okay.
And I didn't know who was opening up, and happened to be sitting there. I got there early, Rob will tell you, I always get to concerts really early, and we'll sit there and just stare for an hour. And then finally the opening band came out, and I didn't know who it was. They left all the lights on. This was at the Omni in downtown Atlanta, and guy in this hat walks out, and he goes, my name's Stevie Ray Vaughan, and we're Double Trouble. And they broke into it. I was like, never heard of you. But by the time they got done playing, I was like, Huey, who am I here to see? I forgot who I was here to see.
No, I know. Because everyone used to talk in those days about his brother Jimmy, who was, the guitar player with Thunderbirds. And Jimmy's fabulous. I mean, Jimmy's is absolutely great. But his little brother came up, and oh, wow. Yeah.
And speaking of brothers, I mean, you briefly touched on the fact that your older brother, Alan Leeds, had really gotten a name for himself, obviously. For those of you just joining us on audio, we are joined by the legendary saxophonist, Eric Leeds, in the house. And an honor to have you here. But again, your older brother Alan Leeds had gotten a name for himself at this point for having been the road manager for James Brown and then Prince.
Mhm.
You know, the question I had was really kind of, and then you mentioned that he gave you a call saying that Prince was putting together the family and wanted a saxophone, and that's how you got in. So I kind of have a little bit of a two-part question. But first off, what was it like watching him succeed so well in an industry that you were really heavily involved in? And were you jealous or envious at all, or did you kind of, you know, separate yourself from that emotion, or what was it like watching your brother succeed so well?
Well, Alan was in the business end, you know, and so it was a whole different, you know, it was a whole different aspiration. I was thrilled. I mean, it was my big brother, you know, and I mean, I have to really be honest. Is that I don't know if I would be a musician if it wasn't for him, because it was Alan that introduced me to every aspect of the music that I loved. Now, maybe I would have found it otherwise. I don't know. But you know, Alan, we had an uncle, Mel Leeds, who was the station manager of WINS radio in New York in the 50s, who was really one of the creators of the whole top 40 radio format. My Uncle Mel was who brought Alan Freed from Cleveland to New York, who was the first, you know, Cousin Brucey, Murray the K. All of these guys got their start, you know, their big start on radio because of my uncle. So my uncle used to send to us, so my brother basically, you know, the DJ copies of all the hit records. Every week we'd get a box of 45s. So Alan was already into the music. I don't know why my brother gravitated to the music when he was like 5, 6 years old, but by the time Alan was 9 or 10 years old, he wasn't like subscribing to Weekly Reader or Hunters or, you know, or Popular Mechanic. He was subscribing to Billboard, Cashbox, and Record World, all of the trade journals. So he had already decided that somehow, some way, you know, the music industry, radio, whatever, and he first was a radio disc jockey in Richmond, Virginia, where we lived. And that's where he then became a show promoter and everything. And that's where he met James Brown and everybody else in R&B then. So it was Alan that basically introduced me to this record, you know, all this music. So I'm 5 years younger than Alan. So part of it is like, okay, that's my big brother. I want to be cool like my big brother. So I'm going to be into what he's into.
Right.
But it did resonate with me beyond that, beyond just, you know, trying to be into what my brother is. And I did start to, even at a relatively young age, discern certain things, preferences of mine versus preferences of his or whatever. But for, you know, probably the first music that really, you know, meant something to me when I was 6 or 7 years old was Little Richard, Fats Domino, Chuck Berry, those guys. But then Alan brought home What I Say by Ray Charles.
Oof.
And it was all over.
I bet.
Yeah, it was all over. I am a musician primarily because of the music of Ray Charles. I'm a saxophone player primarily because of the guy who was his Maceo Parker. I mean, if you want to talk about back in those days, David Fathead Newman, who was just absolutely, to me, just still one of the greatest. I mean, he passed away years ago, but he was my first hero as a saxophone player. And to this day, there are a few sounds in music that are more beautiful or as beautiful to me as the sound that this cat David Newman put through his horn. And that was what captured my imagination. So by the time I'm 9 or 10 years old, and said, wow, maybe I'd like to see if I could do that. Now, I didn't really consider pursuing music as a career until many, many years later. But, you know, I had to do something.
Was there a specific piece of advice that Alan gave you from a music perspective? I mean, from a music business perspective, that he passed on to you that you just like, were just like, man, that piece of advice saved my ass.
No, the problem is that the advice that he passed on to me, I never listened to, because the biggest piece was like, take the gig. You know, the hell with whether you like the music or not. Take the gig. And the only time I ever did that was when I met Prince.
Well, there you go.
Because I had no interest in Prince. I knew very little about his music. There was some music of his I liked, but there was nothing about it that suggested to me that there was anything about him that I would have any particular interest in wanting to be involved in. And Alan's calling me for 2 weeks, and I'm sitting in Atlanta doing next to nothing. And Alan's calling me, there's a gig up here. Will you get on a plane and come up here? And finally I did. So.
Yeah, and did he ever call you from the road and share any kind of crazy stories that, from the road from James Brown's?
Well, I was around James Brown a lot. I mean, I knew James Brown and since I was 14 years old. So Alan didn't have, I mean, yeah, there were always crazy stories, but I was privy to be, to witness the crazy stories.
What was the first crazy thing that you saw James Brown do or saw backstage? You were like, holy shit, this is for me.
This is one of my favorite moments of growing up and understanding what the whole thing was about. This was 1966. We're living in Richmond, Virginia. I'm in 8th grade. So I'm 14 years old. Alan is 19 years old. Alan was already an on-air disc jockey at the local R&B radio station in Richmond. It was WANT. He had also known James Brown already for a couple of years, because back in those days, he had to understand that the business model for the musicians and the artists, pop artists, was very simple. The artists had relationships with the DJs because the DJs played their records. Right, and it was real simple. They play my record, I get paid, I can come into town and sell tickets. And it was a cash and carry business. I mean, it was very simple. So Alan, there was one of the program directors at this radio station who was kind of a legend in Richmond. His name was Tom Mitchell. And he was the promoter on many of the shows that would come through. So Alan learned a lot from him. So Alan just kind of, said, okay, this is how I want to get into this. So he would make it a point to get backstage at all the shows with a big reel-to-reel tape recorder and go to the artist and say, my name's Alan Leeds. I'm from the radio station. We're playing your records. Can you, I got a Saturday morning radio show. Can you do me an air check? Can you do me a spot? So Alan would have Curtis Mayfield and the Impressions. And they say, yeah, we'll do anything, because that's what they would do for the DJs. This was the legal way of doing payola. I mean, really, right. It was a legal way of doing it. So Alan would, so that's how he met James Brown. James took a liking to Alan. And anyway, so now it's 1966. Alan had already known James Brown for about a year. I had met James once, really briefly, for about 2 minutes, but this is the first time. Anyway, we're at the theater where they were playing, the Mosque Auditorium. It's still the venue in Richmond. It's now called the Altria Theater, and it's still a venue that a lot of musicians play. Mm-hmm. Anyway, we're backstage. This is 1966. James Brown, it was about maybe 5:30, 6 o'clock in the evening. Back in those days, he didn't really do sound checks because the PA systems on gigs back then was 2 microphones. There was a microphone for the lead singer and maybe a microphone for the horn soloist. That was it. So there was no sound to check. There were no mixers. There were no mics on the drums, no mics on the horns, no mics on anything.
I didn't even realize that there's only 2 back in those days. There was only 2 mics on the stage.
Generally speaking, yeah. I mean, what we think of as sound systems didn't even start to really, exist until a couple of years after that, late 60s, early 70s. But by then, that's why he used to have 3 drummers. 3 kits and 3 drummers, and those cats would play so freaking hard. Yeah. And the guitar players and bass player would just turn their amps up to 10. Yeah. If you're British and playing with Spinal Tap, you turn it up to 11. Right? All right. And that's it. Now you unfortunately you really couldn't hear the horns all that well because there were just no microphones. So these cats are playing their lungs out, and it was sometimes hard to hear. Anyway, at this time he had a huge band. He had 4 or 5 saxophones, 3 trumpets, trombone, 2 guitar players, drummer, 3 drummers. So they're just rehearsing, and James is at the organ, playing organ with the band. They're just running through some instrumentals. My brother had gone up front to the box office because he wanted to see, come back to be able to tell Mr. Brown, we're doing good business tonight. That's. So I'm standing there. I'm dressed in my little suit. I'm clean. I'm this James Brown. You got to show hard. You got to be clean. So I'm sitting there by the side of the stage, and I'm sitting there. Oh my God, this is the James Brown band. And I'm sitting here and I'm going to be able to hear them just rehearse. So all of a sudden, one of the crew guys, one of the security guys with James's organization sees me standing back there. And he doesn't know who I am. Some skinny little white kid sitting back there. And he says, son, this is the backstage area. You're going to have to vacate the premises. You don't belong back here. And I'm thinking, oh shit, you just throw me out in the street. My brother's up front. What are you doing? James Brown hears this. He stops and he says to security, I think the guy's name was Jimmy. He said, no, Jimmy, he's okay. He said, Rick, that my name was, I always went to the name Rick back when I was a kid rather than Eric. So he said, Rick, come, step closer to the band so you can hear the band. And I'm thinking, oh my God, James Brown just saved my ass from being thrown out. And now, but here's the thing. I'm thinking about, I'm James Brown's best friend now. But as soon as he said that, he looked at the crew cat, and said, he's with the DJ. Now, I got it. Fortunately, I was, I said, right, I'm with the DJ. Said, the DJ's in the box office. This young man is a DJ's brother. Don't fuck with the DJ. Now, my thing was, at that point, I'm about ready to look at Jimmy and say, yeah, Jimmy, I'm with the DJ. And I didn't, but that now,
yeah.
Not only was it was, something that I will always relish just because I said, oh my God, this is freaking James Brown.
Right.
But it was a lesson, it was like, understand what's going on here.
Right.
So those
that's
so they not crazier than that, other than being in a dressing room with James when after the gigs, James Brown wouldn't just jump into, James Brown has left the building. No, he'd go back to his dressing room and hold court after every gig. And first he'd do the business. He'd check the business for that, do all the accounting. And then there would always be people hanging around. And his dressing room was open house for sometimes 2-3 hours after the end of the gig. And whenever he'd be in town in Pittsburgh or Richmond or wherever, I was hanging and I would be able to, he always had a little portable record player, back in the late 60s, little portable stereo record player, because he always had test pressings of his next record or whatever he'd be doing in the recording studio. And he knew me well enough and knew that, how deep I was into the music by then. So I knew the pattern of how the shows would go and when it was okay for me to knock on his door. When I knew I wasn't bothering him, it was right before the gig, whatever. But if he had just come off the first set, then he was chilling for a while. The band as a supporting singers were on. I know, okay, give him 15, 20 minutes. And I can knock on the door and poke my head in and say to the woman who was his wardrobe mistress, I said, her name was Gertrude. I said, Gertrude, Mr. Brown, and said, Rick, come on in, And I said, all right, here we go. So I knew I was going to, he was going to want to play me music because he wanted to play the new music. So first of all, he just plays some studio cuts, some B-sides or whatever, just to see what my reaction is, and he said, I like that because he loved playing blues. James Brown, all he really wanted to do was sing blues. That's all he really wanted to do. So and I'd say, that's cool. But I'd be sitting there and he's laughing. He said, all right, Rick, I know, you want to hear a new one. I said, yeah, I want to hear a new one. So then he put it on. I just remember one time he put it on. It was Give It Up or Turn It Loose. And I'm just sitting there and I'm saying, nobody has heard this yet. He just recorded it like 3 days ago.
That's amazing.
This will be on the radio in 2 or 3 weeks. So that was my, you listen to me like I'm, I get excited about this shit. This is why when I met Prince, it was, all right.
I get it. And every single one of us are huge, just so you know, every single one of us and everybody here are huge Prince fans. You can obviously see behind me that's
absolutely.
It's just, he was an icon and in my eyes. James was obviously historic, but Prince. It's
a lot of generational. What James Brown was my Prince. So,
absolutely, yeah. I totally get that. Totally get that. Rob, you had a question.
Oh yeah, it was about James Brown. That at that time period, I mean, you lived through some amazing musical history, and this is kind of part of that.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm not mistaken, that was during the later parts of the Chitlin Circuit.
Yeah. Yeah, it was.
What was that like? I mean, it's still, I grew up in the 70s, so I kind of have a little bit of understanding, but I can't imagine what that was like. What was it really like?
I'm going to give you a straight up answer, and forgive me because it's a plug. My brother Alan has a book that came out last year called "There Was a Time: My Life with James, My Years with James Brown and the Chitlin Circuit." It's go to Barnes and Noble, Amazon, wherever. It's and everything you want to know about the Chitlin Circuit, it's in that book. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean,
what was it like for you as a young boy?
It was
what everybody expected, so you didn't.
Pretty much. I mean, in like I say, Alan, because of his involvement with the radio station, he knew everybody. I mean, he knew Otis Redding. He knew Joe Tex. Here's the crazy story. The later that year, and this would have been 1966 also. There was one of the package tour shows that was promoted by Irvin Feld, who was the family who owned the Barnum and Bailey Ringley Brothers Circus. He started out as a promoter doing R&B shows, from the 50s all through the 60s. So Irvin Feld shows, they were called, I believe they were called Super Attraction. There was Supersonic Attractions. Then I think his was, I forget. Anyway, this was an Irvin Feld show. And these shows would go out for maybe 2-3 months. Now, this particular show, this would have been sometime in spring or summer of 66, I think it was. The headliner of the show was Joe Tex, because he was big. He was big, and he had a big band. The Marvelettes were on that show. Stevie Wonder, little Stevie Wonder was on that show. Walter Jackson was on that show. I forget who else was on. Anyway, I had met Joe Tex the year before. And Joe Tex was a sweetheart of a guy, and he was a really friendly guy. And he would say, and through Alan, and he took a liking to me, whatever he said. And there was at the same theater, the Mosque Theater, or now the Altria. Back in those days, the Stars dressing room. It was just a room with a concrete floor and a little table with a mirror. That was the Stars dressing room. It was just immediately off stage right. And that's what it was. And they put in a rack to hang the clothes on. Anyway, I was watching the show, and Joe Tex is in the Stars dressing room. He says to me, by the way, Rick, he said, anytime you want to just come in and hang in here, feel free, because my door is always open. It wasn't quite like James Brown, but that's what Joe said. Anyway, I'm digging one act, and I said, okay, I know this act, and I don't think they're working out. I think go back and hang with Joe Tex. Why not? So I'm sitting in Joe Tex, and I'm just sitting in a folding chair, and all of a sudden, Solomon Burke was on the show. So Solomon Burke comes in, and he sits down on the floor and starts kicking it with Joe Tex. And I'm just sitting there just like, said, wow. All of a sudden, Stevie Wonder walked in. Stevie Wonder walks in with his guy, and he says to Joe Tex, he said, Joe, can I borrow a suit? One of my suits got a rip in it, and I'm not going to be able to mend it before I got to go on in 20 minutes. And Joe Tex laughs, and he says, yeah, take the green one. Everybody laughs, ha, ha, ha. Right, okay. So, but sure enough, so anyway, so all of a sudden, so they start chatting, and all of a sudden, they're starting talking about musicians. The guys I'd never heard of, just basic musicians talking about experience with different musicians that they might have had in their bands over the years or whatever. And I'm just sitting there and listening. And the thing was, at the time, it really didn't really faze me, because I'd already been hanging with James Brown. So, I mean, but years later, I'm sitting there and said, oh yeah. Stevie Wonder. Oh yeah. I sat in a dressing room with him and Joe Tex, Solomon Burke, where they were just sitting kicking it for 20 minutes before one of them has to run out the door, go do their 10 minutes, because that's about what they got, 10, 12 minutes, and then run back or whatever, run into, and so that was the Chitlin Circuit.
Oh man.
But anyway, Alan's book really does go into gives a really great background in in what that whole thing was. Yeah, it was fascinating. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's excellent that you mentioned that. Oh, go ahead, Rob.
What's that?
You were
No.
saying? Okay.
Jeff, you're
Okay.
up.
So no, it's good that you said that. As soon as you mentioned it, I pulled it up real quick and started looking at it, and I posted it for all our listeners
Good.
who are on
Yeah.
so they can
Oh.
take a look at it also. And someone else did also. That way, hey, something's going to happen out of that. We always like
that's
to
good.
hear that.
Yeah, and Clark said that the book is fantastic, by the way. So
Clark Irwin. Clark lives in Richmond, Virginia. He's a very, very dear friend of mine. Clark lived in Pittsburgh, and he was the sound engineer in my band Taking Names.
there you go.
Oh, okay.
He was like, and in those days, by then late 70s, we had a sound system that was 20 times more than what James Brown's sound system was back in the 60s.
Yeah.
And Clark was really Clark was the 9th member of the band, because this is a guy that was with us every night. And the old phrase was garbage in, garbage out. So whatever he could do with the sound depended, we had to be playing it. But once he had to make it work in the room, and he did. I've got a lot of live cassette gigs, tapes from that band, and a lot of them sound absolutely fabulous. And that's because of Clark Irwin. He was a good guy. Yeah.
Oh wow. Yeah, actually, that's funny that you said that, because I know that you're not somebody who passes out bootlegs, but some of those shows that you did in the late 70s with Taking Names, that sounds amazing. Do you have any?
I've thought about putting some examples up on YouTube, and I might do that. Of some, just as a little thing. Because it was my band, and it was my band at a time when the band was together for about, once again, a bar band. We were together for a year and a half, and we played 365 gigs in a year and a half. So I mean, once again, it was like night after night. And if you can play night after night, then that's how a band becomes good.
Right.
And the band was kind of my workshop, because I was learning the craft. And I had this band to be able, and like I say, we're primarily a cover band, but even having all that wonderful material to screw around with, and then be able to take these absolutely wonderful musicians. Still one of the greatest rhythm sections that I ever played with. They were just phenomenal night after night. The band we took names. What can I tell you?
Yeah.
And you kicked it.
For those of you just joining us, we are joined by the legendary Eric Leeds, and he's joining us in the house. And for those who are in the chat room, I see all of your questions, and we are kind of going by categories here. So once your questions kind of apply to the category we're in, I got
to tell you now. I will give you all about another half hour, but my Dodger game starts in 5 minutes. So I will give you. I'll give you the first couple innings. But
I understand.
All right, so we got to burn through Jeff. I know you got some, and then we're going to have to dedicate the rest of the time to Prince questions.
I'm chewing on this one, man. There's a couple of things about your musical influences and how things are going, and you've been doing music for such a very long time. We're talking about all these people, and you've been listening and into music and paying attention.
It's been longer than you think.
Right. So, many, many, many years. Let's just put it that way. Now, when you play, we can hear that. We can actually recognize a signature that you have, like just something about what you play when, in your recordings, that you just know that, oh, that's Eric Leeds. Oh, wow, versus somebody else. And despite whatever it is we hear in your sound, who do you feel that you grew the most from or influenced by stylistically? Maybe like who you channel when you're in your zone and actually playing.
Well, it's difficult for me when I hear myself not to know where some of the where the influences are, and I said, oh boy, I gotta disguise that a little better next. Like I said, it's funny that through all of the hardcore jazz guys, particularly, I mean, obviously, I could spend 6 weeks listening to only Coltrane, and that would be fine, I could spend 6 weeks listening to just Wayne Shorter. We're probably, two of the most significant saxophonists. But then there are dozens and dozens of guys who I've listened to over the years. But your first love, it's almost for the first time you have sex. Good or bad, you're not going to forget it. But if it's good, you'll carry that for the rest of your life. Well, I'm sorry, I just go back to Fathead, David Newman. There is so much about. Now, I never wanted to sound like anybody. I just wanted. When I played baritone saxophone for years before I played tenor, and when I started playing tenor, all I wanted to do was make sure, does it sound like a tenor saxophone? That's all I want. Does it sound like a tenor? Fine. So whatever it was my sound. There are players like Pharoah Sanders, Stan Getz, Joe Farrell, David Liebman,
Archie Shepp.
Archie Shepp absolutely was somebody who I loved back in the day. And I mean, on the primary alto player, because I used to play alto, I don't play alto anymore, was Cannonball Adderley, who was hands down one of the most significant influences on me as a saxophone player. And too many names that I can't even go into. I can't even remember. Now, obviously, from the standpoint of growing up with James Brown's music and being so heavily involved in funk bands as much as I was in jazz bands, Maceo Parker was, because I used to be able to be around him when I was a kid.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you something. Now, the thing a lot of people don't realize is that back in the 60s, when Maceo was in James Brown's band in the 60s, he played tenor. He left James Brown's band in 1970. He came back with James around 1973, and then he started playing alto, which is basically all he's played since then. But all of the iconic solos that he played on Papa's Got a Brand New Bag, Cold Sweat, Get It Together, I Got That Feeling, Lick and Stick, Say It Loud, on and on and on. Those are all tenor saxophone solos. One of the greatest coincidences, but one of the greatest things that ever happened in music was James Brown and Maceo Parker finding each other.
Right.
Because Maceo already played like he did before he met James Brown. And it was like, when you listen to Maceo, as great as he is, it's like, okay, this is how this cat plays. If only there was a music that really was perfect for how he plays. And James Brown was making that music, but yet he didn't have Maceo yet. Now, he had great saxophone players. There was a cat who was with him for years and years by the name of St. Clair Pinckney, who was from Augusta, Georgia. Tremendous R&B saxophone player. But Maceo was like the man from Mars. He came with something else. And when you first heard James Brown's music and Maceo, you just said, oh my God, this is, it was one. And Maceo got the gig because of his brother, who was a drummer, Melvin Parker, who James hired in 1964. And Melvin told James, well, Mr. Brown, I'd like to go on the road with you. Do you have a gig for my brother? And James said, well, what does your brother play? He said, well, plays tenor. And so I don't need another tenor player. But I tell you what, I could use a baritone player. So he met Maceo, and Maceo's told me this many times, funny story. He said, James looked at Maceo and said, son, do you play baritone? Now, Maceo had never played baritone before. He said, damn right I play baritone. So for the first year Maceo was with James, he was primarily a baritone player, But he was also, and anyway, it was one of the greatest, most serendipitous moments in music that those two found each other. Maceo Parker could do things with the saxophone that I have never heard anybody else do.
Wow.
Nobody.
Yeah.
The only cat that you could even confuse with that was, say, King Curtis, somebody like that.
Okay.
But Maceo's articulation and his ability to take one beat of one note and slice it into about 5,000 different parts. Now, I can play note for note almost every solo he played on the James Brown records back then. But there are certain phrases that you cannot replicate. I can come close, but it was like people used to talk about like John Lee Hooker, how he would sing. Everything would be in between the beat. You could not, his time was impeccable, but yet you can't count it. You can't notate it. You can't count it. Well, that's Maceo as a saxophone. And the closest thing to Maceo as a saxophone player is James Brown as a singer.
Right.
There you go. You know,
That makes sense.
and yeah. So, yeah.
And to talk about legendary horn players, because I want to switch to, I know our audience will kill us if we don't get to some Prince questions, because I want to kind of tie this to Miles Davis. Because, you know, obviously there's a couple parts to this, but I want to kind of combine it into one question here. Miles Davis, I mean, one of the most amazing trumpet players, and I can't really think of anybody that kind of has done it better as far as just kind of going off. But I kind of remember we just had the Sign of the Times deluxe edition that had come out, which featured Miles Davis, that came out for the performance of New Year's Eve at Paisley Park. And I remember hearing the story about all of you guys were just like stunned because out walks Miles Davis, and Prince is obviously a huge fan, and they kind of walk out and.
We knew Miles was there. I already had, you know, spoken with Miles.
Yeah, when they actually see him walking out on the stage, you're like,
oh yeah,
it's just like shocking.
Yeah,
and I want to make sure that I'm not missing something, you know, because as I was watching it, I was just, you know, you think, oh, Miles Davis, here we go, and it just didn't see the performance itself. Just seemed like a bunch of. I'm not a horn player, but it just seemed uninspired and just kind of just trudged along.
Yeah.
Were you as a horn was just like man,
yeah.
And I was thinking to myself, am I missing something, or are the other horn player is Eric looking at him and going, what exactly is this? And the second part of this question revolves around the song "Can I Play with You," which was sent off to Miles, and he put his horn part on and sent it back. And I remember hearing you and Prince sitting down and looking at this and listening to it and going, okay, this is probably not what I expected to get back from him. So just kind of give me an idea. You know, obviously we're running short on time. I don't want to.
Okay. First of all, of all the musicians that are important to me, and you know, I could spend an hour just talking about my love for Afro-Cuban music and salsa and Eddie Palmieri and cats like that, because that's where I live as much as anything else.
Right.
But as far as my aspirations for anything that I would have, you know, tried to be as a musician when left my own devices, nobody is more significant for me than Miles. You know.
Wow.
Yeah. No one comes. You know, as far as being able to say, okay, this. You know, I was into Miles's music, but growing up at the time, his album "Bitches Brew" is probably still the singular most significant piece of music, because that was the more than anything else, and all the hardcore traditional jazz that I love as much. But coming up at that time, in 1970, when I was like in senior in high school and getting ready to go on the next year to music school, it was like that was okay. Now I know what I want.
Right.
You know.
Right.
More, and there's other music that I love as much as that album, but that was the album that basically said, "Oh my God, it's all here." Now, by the time I met Miles and got to know him in the 80s, Miles couldn't play no more. I mean, to be absolutely honest, he was still the musician he was, and on any given night, you could still feel the heart with his own gigs, but he couldn't play the trumpet too well anymore. And that's something I had already, you know, kind of come to terms with, that his ability as a trumpet player, just, first of all, he had taken 4 or 5 years off in the late 70s. You can't do that, playing it and then come back and think, you know.
Right, you lose a step, for sure.
Now, on any given day, he still had great bands. He was still playing music that resonated with a lot of people. but I was looking at Miles. I said, this is the cat who meant so much to me, but I was able to divorce that from what he was now. So it's not like I'm sitting there being disappointed. Oh, Miles, so no, hell no. This is still Miles Davis. But it was still kind of difficult for me to even relate to him as the musician and what he was that I related and still do for what the music meant to me when I was growing up. More specifically, that particular gig of Prince's band, I know it's iconic for many, many people because of this nature of the gig. It's a live gig by Prince. It's always going to have its moments. I didn't think that was a particularly good gig.
No,
I mean, from beginning to end.
Right.
I thought it was missing something.
What it was missing is the fact that we had been off. We had you see, the show was basically, with some changes, basically what the Sign of the Times concert show had been. It was a little bit different in some places. It was kind of a transition period, but we had not gigged in several months. So it was New Year's Eve. We had been on vacation. Everyone had scattered for the holidays, and we knew we were coming back to do that gig. So basically for us, it was a pickup gig, and there was no real audience. It was a special invitation-only affair at Paisley Park. We played on the soundstage, and most of the people that were there were corporate people.
Right.
Yeah. Now,
Yes.
what Prince did is he invited some younger kids to be there to just try to give it some kind of an ambience, but there really wasn't, it wasn't something that we were really going to get that excited about as far as like getting any feedback from the audience. The main purpose of the concert was to raise money for a charitable organization that was giving out clothes and food to homeless people in Minneapolis, because it was a brutally cold winter. And that was really the primary reason that the whole affair was put together as a New Year's celebration. My mother and father came up from Florida to that. And it was also kind of introducing to the corporate people in the Twin Cities, Paisley Park as a business entity. So, but the main purpose was to raise money for homeless people, for, clothes and food for homeless people. Other than that, yeah, we were just there. I think, I assume we did a long rehearsal, maybe the day before. We probably got in, a day or two before to basically just remember, oh, okay, this is what we were doing 4 or 5 months ago. So yeah, it was a pickup gig. It's really all it was.
And so what was the story with the Can I Play With You? Like, what were your, you must have some type of expectations with that.
Well, okay. Prince, when Miles was going to leave Columbia Records and sign with Warner Brothers, which was a big deal, in the music business, been with Columbia Records for 30 years or whatever. Now he's going to Warner Brothers. So everybody at Warner Brothers, knowing that Miles loved Prince and that Prince loved Miles, they thought it'd be a beautiful thing for Prince to have a song of his given to Miles for Miles's first Warner Brothers album, the album that was Tutu. And it was, I believe, in December of '85. Prince was out in California. And I was in Florida. Actually, my parents lived in South Florida at the time. It was Christmas, and I was there, and my brother called and said, Prince needs you to, Jeff, Braves won.
Yeah, I just saw that. Braves won.
Braves won 5-4. Good. Good. Game. They lose to see another. All right. They got it. That's it. They're in. They're in. All right.
Yeah. Braves are in. For
all right.
Atlanta Braves fans, and now we just put a timestamp on the show.
Now, of course, I was born in Milwaukee, lived in Atlanta, but I actually want Atlanta to win this series. So
yeah, okay, there you go.
Anyway, so December '85, Alan called and said, Prince needs you out in California. And I said, oh shit, there goes my Christmas. Well, it was the day after Christmas. So whatever, I flew out there. Prince had the song, and he said, I wrote a song for Miles. And he said, I need you to put a horn arrangement on it. So I said, so I'm thinking, yeah. So anyway, I put the horn arrangement on it. Prince left the studio. I spent the evening putting a horn arrangement on it. Prince came back. double checked and I said, everything cool? He said, yeah, I really dig it. Fine. He said, Miles was living in Malibu at the time, I think. So Prince said to me, he said, I think tomorrow I'm going to take the cassette over to Miles's house. They had, I don't know if I think they had met briefly once for all of 5 minutes. And of course, I corrected Prince. I said, no, Prince, we are taking the tape to Miles's house.
Right.
Hello.
Now it never happened. Prince told me the next day. He said, "No, I'm just gonna send it to him." I said, "Okay." I didn't think the song was all that much, just personally, But now, on the other hand, it's not for me to say that. On the other hand, I'm just saying I'm going to get into Miles Davis discography because of this,
right.
because I'm on this song.
Right.
So my own personal feelings about the song, the hell with that. Send it to Miles. Get Miles, It's my understanding that some of the keyboard players that were in Miles's band put some more keyboards on the song also. We got the song back from Miles several months later. I don't think it was maybe till March or April, several months later. And only then did I kind of sit down and just listen to the whole thing. And I said, okay, now I can listen to it with some sort of detachment. It was a bunch of horseshit. I mean, to really be honest. But by then, my own feeling about the song was such that the song ain't great. There really wasn't much for Miles to do with it, other than just play a few phrases in between some holes. This is Miles Davis. By then, whatever was going to inspire Miles Davis to do something either at his best or, heaven forbid, something that Miles he'd never heard from, this wasn't it.
Right.
So I didn't say, anything because on the other hand, I'm like thinking, I'd love nothing better than to scream from the rooftops. I'm going to be on the next Miles Davis album, even if it's just playing horn parts, on a song. So I had a vested interest in wanting this to go forward, but I realized that, just from hearing Prince mention a few, I think Prince had asked me what I thought about it. And when his mind is made up, he doesn't ask anybody's opinion. I mean, not in a manner that he's really interested from wanting to know. So I realized at that point that he had second thoughts, because if he was good with it, he wasn't going to necessarily come to me. So what do you think about this? Should, and I told him, I said, Prince, look, once again, I'd love nothing better than to be on this album with his and have my name in the credits, so assuming that they might actually do that. But I said, this ain't nothing here. And Prince basically, and I don't even remember what Prince said, but the fact that you never heard about it again was his answer.
Right.
Now, I think Prince had already heard some of the other music that they had been doing. And that was that album was produced primarily by Marcus Miller. And the song would have been a real outlier. It would not have fit with what the rest of the album was going to be anyway. So from that standpoint, it didn't make sense for the song to be on it. So that was that. Now, I did finally get into Miles Davis discography several years later when Prince did a song for Chaka Khan called Sticky Wicked. That was on her album. And me and Matt Liston, we did the horn section work on that. And then they sent that to Miles, and Miles plays around in it. So finally, officially, you look at the credits on that Chaka Khan album, tenor saxophone, trumpet by Eric Leeds and Alana Bliss, trumpet solo by Miles. Said, yes, I'm there. Now, of course, I was never in the studio working with Miles. Prince was never in the studio with Miles. The only time Miles Davis and Prince were ever in the same room for the purpose of making music together in real time was on that gig. On that gig.
Yeah.
No.
So, all right. So we only have 15 more minutes left with Eric. And so I'll ask one more question. Jeff, you can ask one more question. Rob, you can ask one more question. So go over your questions that you have and pick out which one that you got to ask so that he can get to his game. Rob or Jeff, or whichever one of you is got your question ready.
Yeah, I actually do, because it's kind of off of what you were just saying.
Mhm.
And so my thing is there a song that you can think of for all intents and purposes that you've done with Prince, or, in your time, that you just knew, like you knew this was the one, like something about it was like, oh, this is awesome. And what you played, you knew was the hit, like, oh, this is magic, but it still never actually made the cut. Is there any song that, like, for some reason you're like, what happened?
Well, I can tell you probably one of my absolute favorite Prince songs, and I believe it is it on the Sign of the Times box set. It was a song called in a Room with No Light.
Yes.
Is that on the
Yes.
box set? It
Yes,
is. Okay.
It's a super deluxe. Yeah.
Now the thing is, that's Wendy and Lisa's song.
Mm-hmm.
That was, and it was one of the few times that it was actually a live performance in the studio. Sheila was on drums, Wendy and Lisa, myself, Matt Blister on trumpet. We actually had a third horn on that. There's a wonderful saxophone player by the name of Norbert Stachel, who lives in New York, was an alto player, and he was a member of Sheila E.'s band at the time. So he was on that recording with us. I play a little solo at the end of it as it fades out. The solo, solo is just whatever it was, but the background vocals and everything that Wendy and Lisa and Sheila and Susanna Melvoin did were absolutely just wonderful. But Sheila on drums on that is just ridiculous. I mean, it's just tremendous. I freaking love that song. Now, it wasn't something that I went away with thinking, oh, this is going to be a big hit, because I don't have a good track record for predicting hits. To me, Kiss was a throwaway.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
It was the biggest hit. Yeah.
Yeah. So what do I know? But that was one. I always really dug Power Fantastic. Once again, that was a Wendy and Lisa song. So
Great tune now.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I mean they're wow.
Yeah.
So there was another song of his that this is funny. This is funny when Prince could get very excited about something, but you had to realize that his excitement about something was excitable only for that moment. Because and what Prince might say or feel about something at the moment was heartfelt, but it had shit to do with what he was going to think or say about it a week later. Right. So that was part of his process. One of the first songs of his that I did anything on was a song called Sexual Suicide.
Mm-hmm.
And has it ever come out?
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Okay.
Black Album. Was that? No, it's an outtake on the Crystal Ball. I'm sorry.
Okay. And I have no, I don't even know if I have, I might have that somewhere. Okay. I've got rough mixes that I did of the song with the horns way loud. I had gone and it was a song that he wasn't in the studio with me. He just left instructions. He just said, I need you to go in and do something with this. So I went in on an evening and did whatever I did. The next day he came back to me and he said, I love what you did on the end of it. Can you do more of that kind of stuff on the beginning and through the, I said, sure, fine with me. I'm getting another, I'm getting another paycheck. So fine, I'll do, night after night. Is it right yet? I can go in tomorrow night and do better because a paycheck every night, So anyway, I went in the next night and it was just me and his engineer at the time, Susan Rogers, and she came up with some really cool effects on some of the horns. So whatever it was that I came up with, the next day Prince came to me and he was like, you would have thought that he just invented the bicycle. I mean, that was the greatest thing in the world. Now, from my standpoint, well, this is good. It's good when the boss really likes what you do. But from a standpoint, well, this is Prince. And just from a musical standpoint, him giving me props, I don't take that lightly, So,
right.
but, it was like, Well, the song didn't come out until what, 10 years later. So
Right.
whatever his excitement about, So you had to realize that's just part of the process,
Right.
So
Yeah, that's very, very typical. All right, Rob, you're up. Oh, Rob's muted. Yeah, you're still muted.
still muted.
Oh, he's still muted.
Right?
Nope, he's still muted. All right,
Nope.
I'll go to my question while you figure out what your audio is, and
All right.
we'll figure it out. So my question is about The Flesh.
Hmm.
Obviously, that was a project that had so many amazing songs. Lucky enough that I'm connected with a bunch of different collectors of Prince's music and unreleased, and I've got pretty much everything from The Flesh.
Yeah, it's all out there. It's all out there.
High Colonic and all those stuffs.
Yeah.
And you were actually you were heavily involved in that whole entire process with junk music and just everything that was on there, and you did a lot of the production work on it and everything, and you just put in so many hours and just kind of crafting this. And I guess my question is, first off, it preceded Madhouse. I saw some questions about, whether or not Madhouse was going to do another album. And as far as I know, there's like 3 albums by Madhouse, one of which is unreleased.
Well, my first solo album, Times Squared, was going to be a third Madhouse album originally. It was going to be the second attempt at a third Madhouse album.
Right.
But it was. But anyway,
you had just a massive library of officially unreleased jams, technically. But yeah, Times Squared. If anybody wants another Madhouse album, all you need to do is simply get Times Squared, because that's pretty much your third Madhouse album.
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of picking up. I mean, if anyone really wants it, this is what I do now with Paul Peterson. We got our thing, LP Music. This album is not out yet, but it will be.
You saw it here first, everybody.
Yeah.
Is this an LP project or what is it?
Yeah, it was LP Music. It was the thing we did a few years ago. We crowdfunded it. So the only people that have it are the people that contributed, to us being able to make it.
Is the title? What's have a title? What's the title of that?
Yeah, it's called No Words.
Okay.
Yeah, No Words.
Yeah. All right.
So it's not currently available. We're still looking. We still are waiting to hear from a couple of labels that have expressed a little bit of interest. I'm not holding my breath as much as I'd like to. So we'll throw it out there independently eventually. So Questlove plays on a track. Mike Stern is on guitar and a couple things.
Nice.
Yeah. And anyway,
but the question about The Flesh was that you were pretty much responsible for editing and putting together this album, The Flesh, and did a lot of work. And of course, it got shelved.
Well, it was never going to be released.
Oh, I thought it was. Okay, no. Well, because that was my question about the editing and the unenviable task of having to choose between all those songs, and ultimately how you felt about that process.
Everything on there, those sessions were just extemporaneous jam sessions over a period of few nights. In fact, it was the same week, the week or two after I had gone out to do the Can I Play With You for Miles. I was out there, I was supposed to be out there for 2 days. I ended up being stuck out there for like 2 or 3 weeks. And we were going to the studio a lot. And on any given night, Sheila might be with us, Levi Caesar, Wendy and Lisa were with us on 1 or 2 of the nights or whatever. So that's what all of this stuff came from. Prince basically, Prince would get excited about, like I say, but he never once ever really indicated that this is something he was serious about. And I never took it to be that. What he was doing for me, which I was so grateful and thankful for, is he was basically saying, I got the studio locked out, Sunset Sound out in LA. Right. I feel like going out. I ain't coming to the studio tonight. I got a date. The studio's yours. Take this music and have fun.
I love that.
Do whatever the hell you want with it. Chop it up. If you want to do some overdubs, take that 40, the junk music thing was like 45 minutes. He said, try to come up with something that maybe actually musically might make sense, just to see. And that's basically what all I had in mind. And I'm just sitting there. I said, this is great. This is what I love to do. I got a world-class recording studio. I got all of this. I got great engineers that I can learn things. I was working with an engineer. His name was Coke Johnson, who was working with Prince out at Sunset at that time. So basically, it was he and I in the studio for several nights, just screwing around with this stuff. And the junk music, some of it, but the junk music and that stuff wasn't even on multi-track. We recorded it direct to 2-track. So that you couldn't remix anything on it. It was what it was. So I was just thinking, okay, how would I try to edit this extemporaneous? I mean, we're just, 40 minutes of us just jerking off. It's really all it was.
Yeah.
And with something like that, you might find 4 or 5 minutes that are really cool, and then 10 minutes of us just searching for the next musical point, So it gave me the opportunity for, and with this guy, Coke Johnson, who was like a real old school cut and paste engineer, who knew how to, take a razor blade to the tape and all of that. And it was the first opportunity that I really had to be able to really kind of experiment with editing and things like that. And I learned a lot, because there's certain things that I would say, okay, here's an obvious edit point where, I want to use this like 3 or 4 minutes, and I got 10 minutes of just bullshit. Let's get rid of that. And then we'll cut back in. Here's the point where I'll cut back in. And we, take out the middle and then butt it together. The only thing was, over a 10-minute time, even though Prince was playing drums on that, and his time was very good, the time was just shifting enough that now you realize there's a tempo difference here, and that ain't gonna work. So now back to square one. So you learn all these tricks, and there were some things that I would say, well, here are 2 points that I think would musically make a good edit. And Coke Johnson would say, I can't edit there because, and I'd say, why not? He said, listen to it. Listen to the cymbal. Listen to the ride cymbal. And I said, okay. He said, this is, and he would show me, he would cut, he would make the edit and cut, and said, and then I'd hear it. The cymbal would choke because he had to find a place where the cymbal could bleed over.
Yeah, because it kept ringing out.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So there were other points where I would listen and I would say, well, this would be good at a point. I don't think this would work. And Coke would tell me, no, that I can make work. And I'd sit there and I said, how are you going to do that? And he said, I'll show you. Take a razor blade, put it together with Scotch tape, seamless. So this is what I got out of that. Wow. And I said, this is great. This is like going to school, So I never had any disappointment of the fact that it was never going to be released. I knew it wasn't going to be released. Now, I happen to feel that from my own personal standpoint, there are some minutes of that music that I like a hell of a lot better than anything we did under the name Madhouse.
Yeah. There's some great songs at Madhouse, but yeah, I love a lot of the stuff that's on the Flash. Rob, are you back? You got audio now? Nope, he doesn't have audio.
Nope,
no.
Still
okay. But I knew what his question was. He told me what his question was. He wanted to know what it was like the first time that you actually met Prince, the first 10-minute period of window where you first met Prince, what it was like, what kind of vibe you got from him, that type of, and I don't want to kind of mess up his question, but it said, please describe your first meeting with Prince, the first, songwriting experience, and
well, the first meeting was working on the music for what was going to be the Family album. And because, my involvement as a member of his band didn't come until years later. And there was absolutely nothing about, wasn't a thought that I had. And I don't think it's a thought he had. He was putting together this project, The Family, and he decided he wanted a saxophone player on it. Like I said, my brother Alan had played him some. Prince was sufficiently enthused to want to fly me up to a recording session. I had no illusions or expectations about it because it was kind of funny for my brother to say, well, he's putting a new group together. He wants you in the group. I said, what's he hasn't even met me yet. He wants me in a band that he's putting together. At that point in time, if you're a producer making like an R&B, in the mid 80s, making an R&B funk album, and you want a saxophone player, most producers can call David Sanborn.
Right.
At that point in time, or Michael Brecker, or Prince could call Maceo. Fortunately, Prince was not somebody. Prince wasn't really that interested in having a known sound. He wanted. He liked people that were kind of what he kind of considered homegrown or whatever. So fortunately, whatever it was that he heard that he was sufficiently enthusiastic about, that I came up. Now, like I said, at that point, I had very, very little familiarity with his music. The only album of his that I had even ever listened to was 1999. I didn't much care for it. I liked the song 1999. The rest of the album just didn't appeal to me. Purple Rain was just coming out. I don't even know if the album was out yet. When Doves Cry was out. And I kind of dug that. I found it more interesting than something that I was going to really love. But it was an interesting piece. So that was pretty much my sum total of knowledge of Prince. So I'm going in to do a recording session for this guy, and I'm going to get paid for it. And at the end of the session, I'm going to go home to Atlanta, and we'll see what happens next. Alan introduced me to him, and I think I flew up here. It was a Sunday evening. The session was the next afternoon. Came into the studio, which was in a warehouse. This is years before Paisley Park had been built. So he was, it was just like a rehearsal hall. And he had a studio set up in it. But I mean, there was no isolation or anything. It was just this big room. He had 4 songs ready to go. All 4 songs that ended up on the Family album. And the first thing he said to me was, I could give you a cassette to live with for a couple of days if you want to familiarize yourself with the music. And I didn't want to do that because I didn't want to have any obligation or accountability beyond just whatever it was that I was going to be able to do in this recording session. I wanted the session to start. I wanted it to end, to be done with it, and go home. And whatever was going to happen, but if he's given us, oh, now what? I'm supposed to come in here and feel like I'm that I'm into this, because I didn't want to even be into it at that point. I just wanted to do the session. So I looked at him, and I wasn't trying to be cocky or anything. I just said, well, if that's what you would want, fine. But I said, I got my horn. I'm ready to go if you just want to hit it. And he kind of, I kind of remembered him as just maybe, giving me one of his little smiles, like, oh, okay, let's see what whether it were really that, I don't know, you would have asked him. All I know is that's what we did. And 2.5 hours later, session was over. He had 4 songs, and it was, thank you very much. This is where you send the check. And, that was very, now I enjoyed it. I truly enjoyed, first of all, I enjoyed the music, which was important. And I enjoyed working with him. It was an enjoyable afternoon. And, I'm hardly going to say that I went out of there thinking, oh my God, this is the greatest musician I could ever, clearly he knew what he wanted. He knew how to get out of me things that were appropriate for the songs, beside just what I would have done left to my own devices. So, so there was that. So there was an understanding that, okay, this is a serious guy. That whatever the music is, whether I like the music or not, this guy is serious. But it would be an insult to say that I came out of there thinking, oh my God, because a musician of Prince's caliber, everything that you can learn about him, you're not going to get from just 1 2-hour session. Right. All it was 4 pieces of music, and coincidentally, 2 of the pieces of music were just straight ahead, kind of just typical R&B funk jams, which shit I had been doing professionally and personally for 15, 20 years already. So there was nothing more, but those songs just fell just in my wheelhouse. So, that's basically what, okay, cool. Yeah. My involvement and my real appreciation of him was incremental. It's something that you learn over a period of time. What was so fascinating, so wonderful was to be a part of his musical process. He didn't ask me to come into the studio. He told me, because it was my job. Particularly once I was a member of his band, it's like, I'd get a call from him, or I'd get a call from my brother, or one of the people in the office that said, Prince needs you to come in the studio at 8 o'clock this evening. And I was like, well, I don't feel like it tonight. No, It's my job. So we're there at 8 o'clock. Now, on any given night, depending on what the music was, and then depending on what the mood of Prince was, a lot of times me and Matt Pliston, sometimes he might play us the track first, but a lot of times he wouldn't. There were nights on a certain song that he knew exactly what he wanted us to do. And he would get us in the studio, get our horns ready, warm up, they could do a sound check at the sound, the engineer, and he would maybe just fast forward the song and maybe a minute and a half in the song. He said, okay, here's the line I need you to play. And he'd hum the line to us like, whatever, So I said, okay, and here's where to put it. We're 8 bars before where I need you to put it. So I'll start the tape there. I'll give you a count. 1, 2, 3, 4, you're in. So we're hearing it. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, and that's it. And they said, cool. Now let me fast forward the tape. Well, I need you to do that again. And they said, now I'm going to back up the tape to the bridge. Eric, I need a horn line for the bridge. I don't have one. Give me something. I said, I haven't even heard it yet. Play me to, I said, oh, okay. You'll play me to like 8 bars. And now, if you're working with Prince and that, whatever, you have to do it fast. You don't have time to think about it in that circumstance. You basically just, I'm sorry to be crude. I'm pulling down my pants, I'm bending over, and I'm farting, and whatever comes out, that's what's going on tape.
That's right.
Really. So, right. And if he doesn't dig it, then he'll say, no, that ain't it. So I'll bend over again. All right. I had beans for dinner. I got, I got plenty, or he might say, I like it except for the 3rd note. Can you change it a little bit? I said, fine, whatever you want. Or I might say, Prince, if we're going to change that, voice leading would be better if we now did this. That's how that might happen,
Yeah.
And basically then he might fast forward and say, okay, I got to vamp out for the last 30 seconds. I need you to put a solo, just start playing. We're in the key of E, whatever key we're in. There ain't no changes. Just I'll give you 4, hit it, and just play it out. And that's it. And then only then we come in the booth and he might then play the song for us from beginning to end. So we even see what the hell we're really doing. Now, another night, he might play us the song first and just say, I don't have any, I know what I want, but I'm not sure how to get there yet. On another song, I might get instructions and say, he needs you to do an arrangement on the song, but he's not going to be there. So go in the studio and do whatever you want. Over a period of time, and there are always exceptions to this, but I kind of learned that over a period of time, if he wasn't at the session, more often than not, the song didn't mean as much to him as a song that he was going to be at the session and hands-on with us. Now, I'm sure there were exceptions to that, but and then there were other times, where he would have something done and then give it to me after the fact and say, for all intents and purposes, this is done, but just out of curiosity, take it and screw around with it and see what you come. Which is what he did with Ballad of Dorothy Parker.
Right.
That song was done. Now that's one of my absolute favorite songs of his.
Mine too.
That song was done, and we already had it. So I mean, I had already heard it, and I was really very surprised when he asked me, to do something with that. Now he wasn't there. There were a couple other songs he needed me to do something. So me and Bliston, we went in. I wrote an arrangement for it, and I was not surprised at all that he didn't use what we did. And curiously, for whatever reason, I didn't take home a rough mix of that. Oftentimes, I would get rough mixes of whatever we would do sometimes in the studio, but I didn't have one for that. So over the years, I didn't have a copy of that. So I had no recollection of what it was that we had actually done. And then once, many years after the fact, I was cleaning out an old file cabinet of music, and I came across some sheet music. and it didn't have a title on it. And I'm looking at this. What in the world is my handwriting? And I said, what in the world is this? So I sat down at the piano and started playing. I said, oh, wow, this is the horn arrangement I did for Dorothy Parker. So I had, because I had written it out. And I'm sitting there playing the lines, and I said, well, it was nice, whatever, So when it came out in the box set last year, it was the first time I had heard it since we did it. And I like what I did. I like the horn lines that, but
I didn't like it the first time that I heard it.
Well, it doesn't really have much.
The fact that it grew because the original had grown on me so much.
Yeah.
But now that I've heard it more often, because we have an online radio station called Funked Up, and it plays 24/7. And that stuff is in there. And now that I've heard it a lot of times, I do actually really like it.
Yeah. But you see, this is really what it was. My arrangement on it was a solution in search of a problem.
That's that good way to put it, I guess.
I like that.
Because here's what my process was. I didn't give a damn about the song. To the extent like I really dug the song, but it was like, this song now belongs to me. This is my approach. It's now he's given the song. And if you kind of listen to it, it's almost like horn arrangement with vocal accompaniment.
Right.
Is really what it was.
Yeah.
Now, so I understood when he didn't use it, there was no reason for him to, because it really didn't, there was no added value to what the story of the song was. So even with me and my ego or whatever, I could say, yeah, man, if he had released it with the horns, that would have been the bomb. No. I never ever listened to that song and thought, oh, wow, he should, That song was a perfect little gem, the way it was. And the horns were just me having, and it was like, hey, that's cool. He's asking me to take a piece of music that I like, and I'm going to go in the studio and just fuck around with it. And whatever I come up with is like, he's either going to use it or not. And what do I care? I'm getting paid.
Right.
I'm getting a paycheck one way or the other. So somebody else. Well, here, I don't remember ever playing that song with him live. We did rehearse it a couple times in the rehearsals for what became the Sign of the Times show, but it never made the show. But I do recall that in a couple of the rehearsals, we didn't use any of the horn lines that I'd written, but we did add a pad, like a horn line, just like whole notes underneath the chords, just 2-part harmony to reinforce the basic chords that we're playing on keyboards. And if I had gone in and just done that, it might have actually added something that he might have used, and that might have actually added some, because it was something that would just added a little texture without drawing attention to itself, which is really what the arrangement should have been. But that wasn't what my intent was. So that wasn't what he was going to get. So, so I laughed and just said, oh, this is funny. They're actually finally going to release that. Well, let me hear what it is. And said, oh, well, that's some great lines. Well, guess what? Sooner or later, you might hear that arrangement in a song of mine somewhere down the line.
Right.
So,
right. Might as well.
Yeah.
So I'm seeing all these messages saying that is your game delayed? Is that what's happening?
No, it's back on.
Oh, it's back on. All right.
Dodgers are leading 2-0. So okay. What
No. So I only got. I just have a couple quick things. First off, last week we had Greg Boyer on the show, and he told us that you made him late to rehearsal one time because you were trying to smuggle in liquid chicken into an arena. Is that a story?
No. Don't remember that's a Greg Boyer story. That's a Greg Boyer story, which means it's completely made up.
No, actually, I kind of twisted that one. He said that I wanted him to come up with a story that was tied to you.
It's a good one.
And he said, I was late for practice one time, and I came into the room, and Eric and all you guys were sitting there, and he said, I'm sorry, it's late. Somebody was held up at the gate because they were trying to smuggle in liquid chicken, and everybody laughed, and Prince was like, "You're crazy."
Right. Yeah.
Anyways, but one more thing, because of the fact that we put your music on our radio station, I would love to get a bumper from you before you go. If there's any way that's possible, if
Sure.
you could say, this is Eric Leeds and you're listening to Funkatopia or something along those lines, that'd be fantastic.
Sure, absolutely.
And whenever you're ready, that's perfect.
Okay, hit it.
Go ahead.
Hi, everybody. This is Eric Leeds, and I'm funkin' with Funkatopia.
That's perfect. All right, man. Well, I there are so many more questions that we obviously had, and we had a bunch of questions from the audience too. So what I'd like to do is that somewhere down in a month or so, I'd like to get you back on the show so we could.
Once the World Series is over,
once the World Series is over,
I'm good.
we are going to have you back on the show. We're going to do part 2 of this. I'm going to document all these questions that people have asked me, questions about temptation and all that stuff. Because man, I would love to hear the story about the background stuff, the temptation. So you guys are going to have to tune into part 2. But for right now, ladies and gentlemen, we got to let this man get to his
game. Right.
Eric Leeds, thank you so much.
Thank you, Eric.
Thank you, Mr. Christopher, Jeff, Bob Rhythm. Thank you so much.
Well, it's been an honor, sir. Thank you so much. Get to your game. Get out of here.
All right, man. Peace.
Thank you so much.
Okay, man. Bye-bye.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, there he was, Eric Leeds, and obviously, the World Series comes first, man. It's just is. I saw all your questions, but we realized we were running out of time, and man, it was a lot of fun. And this part 2 is going to be even more awesome because it's going to be more action packed. Because I felt like there was some really, really meaty questions that I really wanted to get to, and I know Jeff, you had some questions, and Rob, you had some questions. I like this format that we. Just speaking internally between Jeff and Rob and myself, I like this format that we had where we can kind of bounce back and forth. But anyways, this has been a great show. It was a lot of fun.
It was awesome. That was awesome. Awesome. Eric is, he's.
Oh, I forgot Rob doesn't have any microphone.
Yeah. Rob, you sign it.
What happened,
dude?
Oh, I'm asking what happens.
What happened?
We can read sign language. It's like kind of pointless.
I think he's shouting right now.
He is shouting. Yeah.
No, I mean he is a whirlwind, man. He's a firecracker.
Well, I saw some guy that was ticked off in the thing. Was just like, this is the worst Eric Leeds interview ever. There's no Prince questions. That I saw it rotate. I was just like, are you not? I think he must have started watching it in like. Scrolled from the beginning because I mean the first half hour or even probably 45 minutes we didn't talk about Prince at all,
right? Just
because but dude, this is Funkatopia. This is not Princetopia. But we're talking about Stevie Ray Vaughan. We're talking about James Brown. We had amazing James Brown stories. We had some amazing funk stories in general.
And we're talking to Eric Leeds.
And we had stories about Miles Davis. Look at that. That's great, man. Look at that. Look at Miles. I mean, we had all types of stories to talk about legendary musicians. So yeah, I'm sorry, dude.
Talking to a great.
So half the show was about that, and half the show was about Prince. So we got a bunch of Prince stories in. But yeah, I mean, that was a lot of fun. It was great. We got a lot of good information. I'm trying to see. Revolution 86. Says Chris, can get Des Dickerson on the show, please. Yeah, I'd love to have Des on the show.
That would be awesome.
I've tried to reach out to him before, but for whatever reason, the contact info that I have is not current. So I need to make sure that, I love to do it. Still trying to work on this Third Eye Girl show, trying to get a Third Eye Girl reunion and have Ida and Hannah and Donna on the show. To kind of tell a whole bunch of stories and stuff. So that is still in the works. It's I don't know what's going on. It's, how that is, but I can tell you that next week, which is coming up next Tuesday, obviously, we are going to have an amazing R&B artist, Martin Kember, on the show, who many of you may know from Color Me Bad. He was also a background singer for El DeBarge, and he also did some production work for Tupac as well. So there's going to be plenty of stories there. So we got Martin Kember. It's going to be in the house. And if any of you are big Prince fans that have done a lot of these after parties and stuff with Alfonso Starr, who's been on our show before, also, normally whenever Alfonso does a show, Martin is normally there doing something as well, because he does great covers of a lot of Prince stuff and a lot of good, old R&B classics and stuff. But again, Martin Kember with Color Me Bad, El DeBarge, he's got some amazing stories, and that's going to be next week. Martin Kember, we're going to be talking with him.
Yeah, that's going to be a killer show.
And then hopefully we'll have more information too about the week after that. I've got a few things in the mix, but yeah, we're just, it is.
Yeah, we're still hunting and fishing and working on people. So, some we can't announce yet until.
Yeah, we got to be really careful too, because we do actually have I'm actually seeing my level now, and I'm seeing that my level is kind of low. I may have to go to Guitar Center and get another mic or something, or figure something out, or maybe switch channels or something, because I guess my level is not probably where it needs to be. Anyways, yeah, we tried our best to get some really, really good guests for you guys, and we're working through it, but we also have a lot of competition out there as well. A lot of people that do the same things that we do. So whenever we announce something, we've already had it happen before. We announced, that we were in the process of working with something, and then somebody who competes with us went behind us and grabbed this person and did a show the week before we were doing. We were supposed to work with them, and it was just that kind of stuff ticks me off. But so I don't really typically like to come out and announce things in advance, and I get why some people that do what we do don't do it.
Yeah.
But on the same note, we also like for you guys to plan things. So it's going to be Carlos asks this. Carlos says, try the Shure SM7. This is the beta 58. The only reason I haven't tried the 7, you mean the 57? I don't know about an SM7. I'll have to try another microphone. One of the ones is, I do actually have the illustrious, what's the other, the blue microphone, but it's a USB microphone, so it has to be hooked in. It's an awesome microphone, but it has to be hooked in to the system. And and my board does not accept a USB connection as an input. It feeds everything out through USB, but as far as accepting a USB connection as a microphone to it, doesn't. So we'll figure it all out. It's maybe good. I may try to hook it up to directly to the computer and see if the board picks it up. It probably does. I would imagine it does.
I'm using the Warm 87.
The what 87?
Yeah, Warm. It's kind of like the U87. It's one of those similar to kind of mics. It's pretty pricey for a mic, but it does a really good job.
All right, but Carlos, thank you for the tip on the on the SM7. I have to look it up. It's been a while. I did want to check. So I wanted to kind of look at just to see, because we have about 5 more minutes in the show before we end. But I did want to kind of go through. I wanted to scroll back up to the top. And if you missed any part of the show and you want to capture it, just so you know, I'm really excited that I've actually been pretty decent about this. The show is going to be on Facebook and YouTube, the unedited version. But I quickly, as soon as the show is over, I normally make the YouTube video unpublished. So if you want to see the unedited, you better copy it quick, copy the URL quick, because I normally make it an unlisted one, and then I put up an edited version because I want people to see. I don't want people to see all the madness. And then on top of that, you can also hear it on iHeartRadio. Yes, that iHeartRadio. Spotify. Yes, that's Spotify. And also Apple Music. We go out to all of them. So after it's broadcasted, you can see them on everything. Apple Music, SoundCloud, Spotify, iHeartRadio. It's all out there. Just go to any of those places and search for Funkatopia. And it's going to be, it's out there.
We are somebody.
Let's not get carried away. So there's I saw this when Eric was talking, when he told us that he was only going to give us 30 more minutes because of the game or whatever. And I love that Nakia said, stay focused.
Stay focused. Yeah.
It was so funny because I saw her say it. I saw her say it when Eric was kind of going down a rabbit hole with the question. And I saw this. I was just like, I really wanted to put this up, Nakia. That was amazing. I was like laughing myself.
Yeah, it's great though when we can ask him something and he drops so many gold nuggets, and the stories keep going, and it's like, this is what we want to hear. I don't even have to ask this question now. I don't need a follow-up now. It's great.
I did want to dig into, because one of the questions that you saw that I had on the list, one of the questions that I had was, you said at the celebration, you really were not into Prince at all. You weren't into Prince's music. But I wanted to ask him specifically about, after the period of working with him for a long period of time, how is it now? How are you feeling about this now? What is your, what is your favorite album by Prince? What are, and kind of give some of those things. And I know there was some other questions here. Carlos wanted to know how much influence writing is yours on the Madhouse records.
Yep.
I actually think that Prince actually gave pretty much all the members of Madhouse carte blanche, really, just kind of let them do whatever they wanted to do. And just kind of, there was a structure to it, but he wasn't going to say, hey, play this, play that. And he may have had, if he wanted to accentuate certain areas, he may have had some direction, but I think he kind of let them do whatever they wanted to do in that regard. But I do want to go through here and document some of these questions that they have that the audience has asked here, and put them into the mix, because there were some really, really good ones in here.
Yeah,
a
lot.
The stories about playing the saxophone for Temptation, the story behind the saxophone, Power Fantastic. Well, he kind of touched on that a little bit. And there was Joel's comment, worst interview of Eric Leeds ever. Anything but Prince. That was Joel's comment right there. Who obviously must have checked out before we talked about Prince for 45 minutes. So Joel, we're sorry we're such a disappointment to you. It's okay.
Do I get a paper bag and say "for shame" and put it over my head?
Yeah. Haters gonna hate, I think is what.
First of all, it was, of anything, an awesome interview of Eric Leeds, because it was about Eric Leeds. That's funny. Well, I love it. I think his history and his depth of knowledge of the industry and just his tastes is great to hear about. And I love that journey. I love that living canon. Of the life. Worst ever. That's wrong.
Here is what the funny thing is. I love when people get upset like that, because it makes the show even better. Just so you know, Jules, so you're not making it worse.
You're helping us.
You're helping us. You're giving us content. So I want to thank you.
Controversy. Wow.
I'm going to turn up. Oh my God. I turned up my gain just a little bit, and that kind of put me in there in mix, but
you're in there.
Oh, and Pamela said, Raphael Sadiq said on Pulse of Supreme that he was supposed to be a part of the Madhouse band. I heard Raphael say that, but I also wanted to run that by Eric. Was Raphael Sadiq really supposed to be part of Madhouse? Was he aware of that? But from Eric apparently was very standoffish about during that particular part of the process when he was involved with Madhouse, that he really didn't give a shit.
Yeah.
So he was just like, I really don't. I could care less. Give me the cheers, because he said it. He was just like, I just want to play. And Prince was like, would you like to take this home and take this tape home and get more familiar with it for a couple of days? He was like, no.
Right now, let's just go.
I literally just want to can you, here's where you send my check. Really? Holy crap.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the pressure of having to take it home and come back having produced something on your own, rather, I guess, and he's used to playing. So it's like, let's just play. I think,
and I have to find a bootleg of this LP music. I also wanted to ask him about LP, this project. A lot of people don't know this, but Eric Leeds and St. Paul Peterson from the family do have a project called LP. And I think it was two celebrations ago. It was two celebrations ago. I actually got an opportunity to see LP play at this this club. I can't remember the name of the club. It was Fine. It was Fine Line, I think it was, in Minneapolis.
Rob is mouthing it to you.
What was it, Rob? Ice House.
You need a piece of paper and just hold up.
Okay. I just need. Rob's having microphone problems or whatever. But Ice House, I don't. Was that where it's at? But anyways, I got to see. Rob wasn't even with me, so I don't even know how he knows where they were playing. But okay. But so I got to see them. That's actually where I met Eric. And, I didn't get my picture taken with Paul, though. I didn't get my picture taken with Paul until the next day when he happened to be wandering around Electric Fetus in Minneapolis at the record store in Electric Fetus. And I was like, oh, shit, Paul's right here. And I got an opportunity to meet him and get my picture taken with him there, which is good because it was much better lighting than when I met Eric. But yeah, the LP was amazing. But I think what's really, really cool is that all this stuff, this historic stuff that's happening in with. So what was the context of that album, No Words, that he put together? This was like a culmination of some recordings that they had previously from old.
Right, cut and put together. And
was it for old Madhouse recordings, or what was the? I can't remember. Was it old family stuff, jam sessions and whatever? From what I understand, there were old. I'll have to go back and listen to the interview now, but there were old jam sessions that happened as a result of some spit out from Madhouse and some spit outs from the family, and they actually put them together in and maybe some of the people that are in the chat room here can remember, but they're basically recordings of this thing that they put together, and it's album by LP music called No Words, and it's not new music, it's music from that specific time. So I need to get a hold of this. I was not aware of it. I guess he said that was a crowdfunded project, so only those people have it.
It's kind of cool to be able to do that, though.
I
you got the keys. Here you go. That's what happened once.
Yeah,
that starts off with that time when.
Yeah, exactly. And of course, there's a question about the song about Temptation, and Carlos also said, I need to get a copy of the Flesh record. Anyone got any leads? Pun intended. Haha. You can actually go onto princevault.com, and you can see the track listing for that album, The Flesh, underneath the unreleased album section of that. And then you can take each one of those songs, go to YouTube and search for Prince, and then put the name of the song, and you'll get
the whole
and the whole entire album is on individual tracks on YouTube. So you can actually go, and then what you do is once you go to the video, I'm going to show you how to bootleg. When you go to the video,
we don't use that word here. We do not use that word here.
You can then copy the URL from YouTube. Rob just disappeared. You copy the URL from YouTube, go to never mind. You can figure out a way. Just
going to show you how to acquire, how to subrogate.
Yeah, just go to you can go to any YouTube to MP3 converter online. Search for that on Google. You'll find some.
They work really well. I mean, that's what I heard.
Download. I hear they work phenomenally well. YTMP3.cc is probably a really good one.
I've never heard of it. Sorry. I have no idea of any of them.
There's a variety of ways to get music off of YouTube if you find something. But if you are a DJ, do not get songs that way, because it's normally broken up with a bunch of dramatics and theatrics and whatever, and extra sound effects that don't normally that aren't in the actual song. Well, plus, so if you are a DJ and you are stripping music from YouTube, you got to make sure that you put the name of the artist, the song, and then put the word lyrics after it, because that's when somebody has taken the song, the actual song from the album, and not video versions of it. So you get good, clean versions of the song for your bootleg collection.
I'm sorry. Shame on you if you're a DJ and doing that, because you get paid to perform. You need to pay for those records. Buy them all.
I do have to make sure that you understand that we are an ASCAP licensed radio station, just so you know. So
that's right. Nothing here is bootleg.
You're going to hear some stuff that we kind of like you to hear, but all the regular material is all paid for. And we actually pay the artist every single time you play the song.
The views expressed by some of the members of Funkatopia
are not necessarily the views of Funkatopia.
All members. I'm just trying to not get caught up in that.
Yeah, no, we're just having fun here, so don't. What what I'm trying to see. So Arlene has got our back. Said it was a great interview. One of the reasons P would have him around was because of his love of all that music. Yeah, and I wanted to hear. I mean, not that I didn't want to get not that I didn't want to get to the Prince stories. That's we are very, very familiar with our audience. We know that you guys want to hear Prince stories. We got it. We absolutely know that. And we had tons. If I could show you this document, and I could, but I'm not going to because we got a part 2 coming up.
No, we have Rob for that.
Tons of Prince. For those of you who don't know the inside joke, Rob just took himself off video. For those that know the inside joke, Rob is notorious for sharing his screen and showing things to people that like. And the most legendary was we were about to start a top 20 dirtiest songs countdown, and and Rob shared his screen and showed the whole list before we had even started the show. So he was like, I'm not gonna do that. And I was like, okay, so I'm sharing your screen, and he put it up. Like literally, it was up. I'm like, oh my God.
Oh man, we had people saying, "Oh, we already know now. We don't."
Yeah, so,
Good night.
So of the 3 members here, Rob is the most technically challenged. For he doesn't, it's just because he's has you can't even hear him right now.
Right. I mean, he missed a challenge.
That just goes to speak to his challenges.
He's the mime.
He now see, and is he just now thinking to put stuff into the chat room? Is it just now occurred to him that he can put stuff into the chat room? Is it just now occurring to you after being in the dark audibly for the past hour? You're like, oh yeah, you know what? I could put my stuff in the chat room. Just now. Jules said didn't mean to be rude. Jules, we're just messing with you, brother. We're just messing with you, but it's perfectly fine. We want you to let us have it. If it's a crappy show, you need to let us know. We have to know. But we were in the middle. We already been talking about Prince for the past 15 minutes when that comment came through. So that's what was weird about that comment. It was like, we're talking about him right now.
Yeah, Jules. Yeah, no offense, Jules. We're just picking on you because it's
just funny.
You're an easy target at the moment. Yes. That's all. When you get someone as dynamic as he was, just like Greg Boyer, it's the same thing. You let them go. I mean, if he wants to talk and tell you something amazing, let him go. I mean, I had questions that were, Miles Davis, considering how much he said he loved Miles Davis, knowing that he was a slow burner to even discovering Miles Davis, to me was like, what?
And I was glad to get validation on the fact that New Year's Eve show, Miles Davis sucked that night.
Right.
I was like, and somebody else, I can't remember who said it, was it Cammy or somebody else had said it. Somebody else has said, yeah, maybe it was just, I just thought that I just had an inexperienced ear and I just wasn't getting it. But I was just like, I don't think you have to have an experienced ear when there's a infamous trumpet player like Miles Davis that's just on there going, meh.
Then looking around at everybody like, whatever.
And Prince was like, going on. He was kind of saying to the band, no, just let him do his thing. Let him feel the song out.
He'll get loose.
He'll get loose. Let him loosen up. And then there's 10 minutes of meh.
Yeah,
like,
but
okay.
You're right. The energy just wasn't there, and that's what you were feeling. Like
okay, this is
something.
Happening. I got to check with Eric and see if I'm just an idiot.
Yeah.
Am I an idiot? Yes, I'm an idiot. But am I challenged in that way?
I love that he was able to explain it like that. Made it really clear. As like, gotcha.
Yeah. Yeah. And Eric was just like, yeah, he just wasn't that at that point in his career. He just wasn't. Yeah. I mean, Bitches Brew, is legendary. It's a legendary album. That's just the quintessential jazz album for sure. But it just came, all the drugs and all the, health issues that he was having just really just, it was just like Muhammad Ali, just kind of watching this degradation of a this amazing, like bigger than life character just kind of fizzle in front of you. It's like, oh, I don't know if I want to see this. This is
I like that. I agree with what Rob said. Hey, Rob had a comment in the chat.
Oh, did he? I haven't gotten to it yet. Oh my god.
Alpha males, alpha music males comment. I totally agree with that. He says, I don't think two alpha music males can just get together and jam without working it out first. And yeah, I can see that, I mean, everybody wants to, you go in and you go, I can just do what I can do. But this is a whole different world of energy coming off of both of them.
Yeah, and Rob, whoops, I was click on Rob's and I put Stacy's and said, Rob said, Bitches Brew, change music, and Miles owes a lot of it to Betty Davis. Correct. Actually, and Prince owes his trademark holler to Betty Davis as well. We have had this discussion before on Betty Davis's song for the what's that song for the press. There's a song that came out before Prince. Well, not before Prince, but before Prince actually released an album that actually has her singing his iconic. It's all over the song.
His iconic what?
I can't do it. I can't do it. It's fucking too late.
You can do it.
You
can do it.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Sure, Rob's hiding behind a muted mic.
We need to put like a thought bubble thing over him.
Okay, all right, go ahead, Jeff. You do it.
I'm not doing it.
No, you do it. There you go. There it is right there. See? And Betty Davis was doing that back in 75, 76 and did it on that song. And it's the same exact one that Prince has done. And she did it multiple times in that song I think it was called For the Press. I can't remember the name of the song. But anyways, and there's no way that Prince didn't hear it because this was completely in Prince's wheelhouse musically. So yeah, so Betty Davis is a funk icon for sure. But yeah, it is what it is. What I wanted to tell we've been actively trying to get Bernadette Cooper on the show from Climax, from Madam X, and I have actually been I told you I've been talking with her back and forth sporadically on I'm not going to tell you what platform I've been talking to her on, because all you folks that are listening that like to go behind me,
people are
there is a specific platform that's not a usual platform that I finally got response and whatever. So, and I hear that she is actively working on a brand new Climax project. There's something new that's happening with Bernadette. And so I'm hoping that as a result of that, we'll actually get some type of to do some type of press junket, and I hope that we're one of the stops on that for sure, because Bernadette Cooper is legendary, and I was very pissed off when Madonna released that project called Madam X, and I was just like, are you friggin' serious right now? Bernadette Cooper is Madam X. But I can no ill will towards Madonna, but
yeah,
I was annoyed to see that the project was called Madam X. I was just like,
yeah,
I'm not happy about that. Call it anything. Call it something else, because Bernadette is Madam X. Thank you very much. And I was happy to have that. That was one of the albums that I had actually gotten, was that. I have it right here. That was one of the albums that I got. I got it for $3. Meeting in the Ladies' Room.
Yes. Yes.
It's got it has The Men All Pause on it. It's got I Miss You on it. Meeting in the Ladies' Room. I Betcha, Love Bandit. I mean, this album was
a great album.
Friggin' iconic.
Yeah.
And Madam X, the album Madam X, Rob will tell you, I had Madam X on that was in rotation constantly I love that Madam X album. Everything about that Madam X album, marry me if you really love. That whole friggin' album was amazing. And to know that she's actually going to be working on some new project, I'm just beside myself. I cannot wait. It's so friggin' amazing.
Freaking amazing.
Oh yeah, let's have a little bit of a battle. Climax versus The Time.
Oh, wow.
I would love to see how that would play out in a non-Prince channel like this one is. Everybody knows how that would swing.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I while I love Climax, I don't know. I would you have to kind of put it in like a funk channel that's like not that could swing either way, just to kind of that would be an amazing versus right there, for sure. I mean, gosh, it's just
that would be
anyways. And then I guess somebody's listening to the show in somebody's listening. Chester just came into the show and is asking a question for Eric. Chester, I will document it and put it in there because he's actually watching in a little bit of a delay apparently. But yeah, it's a good question. Did Alan suggest the new sound of MPG? I don't think so. I don't think anybody tells Prince what to do, but
just keep in mind, guys, that it's good. Keep throwing those questions. That's fine because there will be a part 2.
Yes, there's going to be. We've already confirmed it. There's going to be a part 2 once the World Series is over.
Exactly.
We can. He is a baseball nut. We were actually going back and forth on the email before I even got him on the show, and we were going back and forth and talking about. He was just like, "Well, the baseball game. That's kind of when the World Series happened, or not when the World Series, when the playoffs happened." Just
right.
And I was just like, "Okay, we can do it." He goes, and I told him the date, and he was like, "All right, I don't think that one starts until late, so I can give you." I was like, "Okay, whatever. Give me 30 minutes, I'm good." But I knew 30 minutes was not going to be enough because
that's one question.
That's like one question, right? Exactly. I think we were like, I think the first 30 minutes was the first question. No joke. If you go back and watch the thing, I think we asked him the first question and it literally was 30 minutes.
Yeah, without follow-ups. It was just go.
Yeah.
It was great though. It was great heat.
Carlos says the game is only an hour. If we just stay on, we can just call him back when the game's over. So,
that's right.
All right, Rob is yelling at me. What do you want? Get your mic working. Why are you pointing at your? What are you looking at? You're pointing at something.
About.
Are you wanting me to look at my phone? Are you sending me something on my phone that you want to say privately? Oh my gosh, what kind of picture is that? No, I'm just kidding.
You know what? I don't know if I want to know, and I don't know if you should even share this. So we're gonna move on to phase 2.
Right here under your shoes.
I don't even have a phase 2, and I'm gonna bake something up.
Okay. I'm missing it. I think he's normally.
Remember charades? Can we just do like a charade? Sounds like first word.
Just send it to me on the phone. He obviously he's normally him and I are very, very in sync. But for some reason, in sync, we can normally look at but I don't know.
Mixtapes?
There's a component missing. Chris and I used to make mixtapes. Yes, we did. Not for each other. Well, actually, that's a lie.
Not videotapes, right?
Not videotapes. No, that's a lie because a lot of times when he was working, I would be at the house not working, and I would make mixtapes of songs that I really, really liked that I wanted him to listen to, check out, new stuff and whatever, or just mixes of albums that we had, and we were like, "Hey, there's something for you to listen to," and he'd be like, "Here's something for you to listen to." Jill Norman's like lyrics. Yeah, everybody was like, what kind of tapes? Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. He's bringing up the two songs when you
Well,
have.
Yeah, I knew what the right here under your shoes. I know what that meant, but I was just trying to figure out how that fit into what this is like the worst charades friggin' ever.
I don't think you're supposed to type.
Three
in
words.
charades.
Movie.
This is.
We laughed about this forever lyrics. I remember we laughed about it.
I'm so done.
You
know what, Rob? I'm gonna
All
laugh
right.
about this forever.
All right. Anyways,
Could it be something simple? Did you just push mute on your web browser?
Okay. Anyways, yeah, this is horrible.
You know, we need him to call in. Can you call in? Can you be like caller number 12 and just call in?
Oh, he's
the
got
interface
some
died.
kind of 80s looking microphone. What is this thing that
Now his interface died. Wow.
okay.
Isn't that a remember that? Oh, when that kid's microphone, I can sing or whatever. Okay, never mind.
Is that the T-Pain microphone? Are you got the T-Pain microphone? Oh my god.
That's the auto-tune microphone.
The battery died in your microphone. Is that what it is? And you don't have any double A's. You're just go out and get some batteries from your TV remote.
Wow. He's been
All right, well that's okay, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. It was great to have the legendary. I couldn't even think of any other. Selena says that's a Star Search microphone.
No.
Speaking spell. The cow goes. You always add that like weird.
Here is a duck.
Cow goes. And you just like put your finger on it so it would like screw up the sound.
Here is a Rob.
The Rob goes.
Oh, that's horrible. That's just mean.
Anyways, yeah. Oh, you can see my new shirt. I got a Prince Welcome to America. This actually official estate shirt. Welcome to America shirt.
Nice. Very
pretty. Very awesome. Wanted to get an official one. Yeah, so we had a lot of fun tonight talking with Eric Leeds. Again, the edited version of this will be up, and we will Rob's still talking. Or talking to no one.
He'll be back online next week and able to talk to us again.
We'll see. Because this is the only thing that he uses his microphone for, so he's gonna leave it alone.
So he tells you
the night before. Anyways, it was a lot of fun. But yeah, and again, remember, next week we will have the great Martin Kember on, which is going to be, we're going to talk about Color Me Bad, his time with Color Me Bad. We're going to talk about his work with El DeBarge. We're going to talk about his production work that he did with Tupac. That's a story I got to figure out. And Jules, if you're listening, there'll probably be very little Prince stories.
We might.
Just pre-warning you,
Jules. You gotta stay with us. I love you already.
Jules. If we do a show, we are not going to do a show unless you're on.
We're done until you.
We're going to stay quiet. Our microphones will become Rob's microphones until we see that you're online.
Just mute.
No, actually, Martin Kemmer does actually have some Prince stories, so he'll share some of those. But Jules, I'll text you when he starts talking about that. But Martin Kemmer is going to be on next week, so I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be a lot of fun. Guys, thank you for all the great questions. I'm sorry that we didn't get to all the questions. Rob had a ton of questions.
Yeah, there were a lot of great questions.
Yeah, Rob had a lot of great questions. And,
yeah, Rob.
And he his microphone. Yeah, his microphone gave way, so that was kind of crappy. I know he's got a bunch more information that he wants to get. So
Huh.
part 2, we'll have a part 2 Eric Leeds once we get to the other side of this. So
awesome. We done?
we're done. All right, we're gonna put on some music now, folks, so we can get back into the Prince block and whatnot. But we're gonna have a good time for sure. And since we talked a little bit about 777-9311, by the time we'll break right into that. So thank you guys so much for joining us. But I'm not gonna start this until we're actually off. So there's that, because YouTube's nasty. So good night, everyone. For you guys on the radio show, you'll start hearing 777-9311 in just a moment. We'll see you next week. Martin Kember is going to be in the house. And thank you so much for joining us tonight.
See you guys.
See ya.
Thank you.
Hey, and if you missed anything, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Apple Music, you'll be able to listen to this coming up very shortly, probably tomorrow. So we'll see you then.
Because we're somebody.
That's right. Good night, everyone. Thank you for listening.
Good night, everybody.
To be alive. Thank you again to Eric Leeds. And good night. See you later.
See you, Rob.